Chapter 1. Holli Harris finished her work for the day and wandered into the kitchen to see what she wanted to have for supper. She and her housemate Alyssa were both missing their friend, Heather, who had gone back in time to live in medieval Scotland. At least that's where they were told she'd gone. Holli was inclined to believe her with no proof in hand. It was good to be able to believe in people. She opened the fridge and turned at footsteps behind her. "How are the aliens doing with the Earth girl they found?" Alyssa asked, referring to the book Holli was reluctantly ghostwriting. "Ugh, this outline is the absolute worst of the series. I swear if I never write another space opera it will be way too soon. If the publisher didn't pay so well, I'd never have accepted this one. It's a good thing they provide me with outlines, and all I have to do is crank out the words to go along with them." As a ghostwriter, Holli had little control over what she wrote. She was so sick of working on the stupid manuscripts that were required of her, but they paid the bills. "I don't blame you. They sound awful. Yeah, don't read one. Stick with medieval Scottish romance, what's better than that?" Holli grinned at her friend. "Have you read the new series Caroline Lee has going?" Alyssa asked. "I haven't tried them yet, but the titles are funny enough. I just loaded up my iPad with them." "That sounds really smart to me. Let me know how they are, and I'll read them if you like them." "Oh, you know I will. Caroline is one of the few authors I'll genre jump for. She's so funny." Holli smiled. "I'm thinking of going back in time," she said softly. Alyssa's eyes widened. "Back to Heather? I don't think I can specify. I want to go to Heather and go to the man who is made just for me. I need the man more than I need the friend." "Well, maybe I do. I also really want to see Heather." Holli sat down in one of the kitchen chairs. "I miss her." "I do too. I'll help you get ready if that's what you want." Alyssa looked sad at the thought, but Holli knew she hated change. "It'll be good for us all, I think. We never wanted to live together as long as we have, and this is forcing us to be separated." Holli shook her head. "I need to try it. I feel like my whole life is churning out books, none of which I think are worth reading. I need to quit living on a hamster wheel." Alyssa sighed. "I kind of feel like I'll be going soon too, but I need to think about it more and prepare everything before I jump in." She looked frightened at the idea of doing as Holli was determined she would. That wasn't unusual for Alyssa though. Holli smiled, nodding. "And I need to just do it. Then we'll get you ready." "When will you finish your book?" Alyssa asked. Holli sighed. "I wish I felt like I could just leave it in the middle and not finish it first, but you know me. I have to finish what I promised I'd do." She thought for a moment. "I think if I push hard, I can be finished by Friday. Then we'll take a week and get me ready, and I'll go a week from Saturday." "You have a Scottish gown, right?" "Well, I haven't had one for years like Heather did, but I had one made after Heather went back. I knew I'd eventually want to follow." Alyssa smiled. "I had one made too. So many little pockets. I have some antibiotics and little things like that. I'm sure I can be ready in a week." "Solar-powered chargers?" "Well, yeah. Of course. I'll grab a couple of extra devices too. If I run into Heather, I want her to be able to read." Holli shook her head. "What if she hasn't been able to read for the months she's been there? How awful would that be?" "Oh, Heather will figure out a way to read. I don't know what it is, but I'm sure she'll do it." Alyssa smiled. "She'll write in the dirt and then read what she's written if there's no other option." "She will." Holli smiled, liking the idea of seeing their friend again. She knew the chances weren't strong, but she could hope. Alyssa reached out and squeezed Holli's hand. "We'll get you ready to go a week from Saturday. I wish I had the guts to just go with you, but I'll need a little more time for that." "Thank you." It meant the world to Holli to have the full support of her friend. On the Friday night before she left, they went to the Twisted Kilt for supper, a place that had been a favorite of all three friends before Heather had left. Alyssa paid for supper, and Holli went over the list the two of them had made together to be sure she had everything ready. When they reached the last thing, matches, Holly sighed. I feel like I'm turning into you being so prepared. She shook her head. Who would have thought I'd have the ability to be this picky about anything? Alyssa shook her head. You're not me because you didn't fret about it for months first. You decided to do it, and you jumped right in. It would have taken me months to do what you're doing. Holly smiled. I'm going to miss how prepared you always are, and I'll miss your willy-nilly nature, which causes you to jump into everything without looking or thinking about the consequences. The waitress knew them and walked to the table. Usuals? She asked. Both nodded. It seems strange to know this will be my last time to eat here, Holly said, feeling a little sad, though she knew she was doing what was best for her, and it was time for her to take her own needs into consideration. You think that's strange? I'm going to be living alone for the first time in my life. It's going to be weird rattling around that big house with no one to argue with. Alyssa grinned at her friend. We've done better about not arguing since Heather left. Maybe we both knew that she would help us, so we argued more. Maybe, Alyssa said. I think I'm going to turn your room into a library. Not a shrine? Holly asked in mock dismay. Not this time. Have you thought about getting more roommates? Holly asked, hating the idea of her friend being totally alone. Alyssa shook her head. No, and I won't. I really will be following along soon, and I don't want to have to explain to a roommate that I'm going back in time to meet up with some friends. She shrugged. I own the house outright. I only ever had roommates to keep me company. Holly knew her friend wasn't rich, but she could live comfortably on her salary, even in upstate New York, since she had no rent or mortgage. Her parents had left her in a good position. That makes sense, Holly said. Promise me you'll at least get out once a week, if only for book club. I'm worried you'll lock yourself away in that house with no one to talk to except your clients when they come. Alyssa smiled. I'll do my best. I hope so. Holly shook her head. Heather and I would have still been able to go out if one of us were alone. You're different. I know. It'll be all right. If I get too lonely, I'll just follow faster. Holly nodded, taking a deep breath. I'm getting really excited to go. And I pray that I'll see Heather. It would be so much easier to see someone I love as soon as I went to medieval Scotland. I don't blame you there. Are you sure you're ready for this? Holly shrugged. As ready as I'm ever going to be. I'm taking a huge bag full of stuff as well as filling all of my hidden pockets. How do you think Monopoly will go over in medieval times? Alyssa laughed. No idea, but it sounds like it could keep you from going insane. And books, of course. Lots and lots of books. Saturday morning, Holly woke up early and changed into her Highlander dress. As nervous as she was sure it would all turn out just fine. Alyssa and Holly rode together to the library for their book club meeting, and they were upstairs before anyone else arrived, though Dr. Lachelle was there within a minute of their arrival. I see someone is planning to travel back to Scotland. Medieval like Heather? Dr. Lachelle asked Holly. Holly nodded. I want to be close to Heather if you can make that happen, but I also want to be close to my soulmate. I'm sure that's a huge order to fill. The older woman nodded. It is, but I think I can make it happen. Though she'd asked offhandedly, sure it couldn't happen, Holly clapped her hands and let out a squeal. I can't wait. Do you want to do it now, or after the meeting? Dr. Lachelle asked. Holly bit her lip. Would it be a problem if I did it now? When Heather had gone, the upstairs had been full of people, and they'd all kind of freaked out when Heather disappeared right in front of them. Holly didn't like the idea of having that much attention on herself. Not at all. Dr. Lachelle put her hand on Holly's shoulder. Now I want you to say your wish out loud. You know I can't send you without an official wish. Holly took a deep breath and said the words she'd been practicing all week. I want to be sent back in time to the Highlands during medieval times, and I'd like to meet my soul mate there as well as my friend Heather. Alyssa reached out and grasped her friend's hand, tears in her eyes for the first time since they'd started discussing the possibility of Holly going back. I'll miss you. It was the last thing Holli heard as she felt herself get lightheaded and faint dead away. Derek McClain glared at his twin sons, Bryson and Kendrick. By your age I was married with my first 2 sons. Why are the 2 of you not looking for wives? Bryson exchanged a look with his brother. We just haven't found the right lasses yet, father. Their mother, Heather, smiled at them. In my time, they would be young to marry. Well, we're not in your time now, are we, wife? Derek shook his head. These boys need to fulfill their responsibilities to Clan McClain. Especially you, Bryson. It's not enough to wander around talking to every animal ye see, ye need to find the girl who completes ye and marry her. Ye have 7 sons that need to be born, and ye arena getting any younger. The more upset their father got, the stronger his Scottish brogue. The boys spoke Gaelic clearly, but they also spoke what their mother referred to as modern American. Bryson stood up to face his father. I will make you a promise then. As soon as a beautiful lass comes back in time, I'll start getting ready for a wedding feast. Until then, I will keep looking at all the lasses around. He knew he was being flippant, but he wasn't ready to take the steps his father thought he should be taking. Derek glared at his youngest son. Ye are meant to be laird by now. Bryson shrugged. I think it's time for me to go on patrol. Someone mentioned there was a dangerous wild dog in the woods, and I promised I'd have a look. This isn't over, Bryson. I know it isn't, father. Bryson had heard the same lecture every month for years. How could he not know it would be brought up again and again? Ye coming, Kendrick? His brother fell into line beside him and the 2 of them left the keep, heading straight for the woods. How much longer do you think we can get him to wait before he finds lasses for us himself? Kendrick asked. Oh, I don't think it matters for you. It's me he wants married. It's my destiny, after all. Bryson waved his hands in the air with a flourish as he said the word destiny, a word that had been lorded over him since he was a little boy. He'd known from the time he was old enough to understand that it was his job to marry, lead the clan, and have 7 sons. It didn't really matter what he wanted. There was no choice in the matter. He must fulfill his destiny. If he heard the word destiny one more time, he was certain he might just vomit. Kendrick sighed. I loved your promise to marry if a lass comes back in time to you. I doubt it will get father off your back for long, though. It's worth a try. I swear the man is going to make me absolutely crazy. He crouched down to talk to a squirrel. He didn't really talk to the animal, but his thoughts were heard by the squirrel and the rodent answered back immediately. I was told there is a wild dog nearby killing creatures and hurting humans. Is this happening? It is. But there's something worse right now. A human came from nowhere and is in the woods, lost and alone. She needs help. A human? Bryson got to his feet. There is a wild dog, but she said there's also a lass lost in the woods. The lass needs help more than we need to find the dog. Did the squirrel tell you where the lass is from? Kendrick asked. Bryson sighed. The squirrel said she came from nowhere. Kendrick laughed and clapped his brother on the shoulder. Let's go meet the future lady of Clan McClain. You don't really believe that she came from the future, do you? Bryson felt his heart sink at the very thought. He loved his life as a laird's son. It was too soon for him to become a laird, but he did promise that he would marry anyone who came from the future. He only hoped this person came from somewhere, anywhere, but the 21st century as both his mother and grandmother had. Bryson closed his eyes and reached out to a bird on the tallest tree he could see. Can you see a lass hurt here in the woods? Aye, future laird, she is on the north edge, and she seems to be asleep. I know not if she's hurt as well. Bryson took a deep breath and headed in the direction the bird had indicated. He'd always loved his powers of being able to talk to animals, but all at once they seemed to be too much. He didn't want to go and face a stranger who may or may not be the woman he was meant to marry. Why did he have to believe in destiny anyway? When Holli woke, there were 2 large men in kilts leaning over her. One had his hand on her forehead as if to see if she was sick. She immediately pushed the hand away. Who are you? Where am I? Bryson sighed, not at all pleased with what he was hearing. The lass was comely, but he didn't feel ready to take on the mantle of laird. My name is Bryson McClain. You are in the Highlands, in the year of our Lord 1314. You are in McClain territory. Where are you from, lass? He knew his speech contained a mix of different speech patterns, but it came from being raised by a woman of the future and a man with his roots firmly in the present. I come from a place called New York. She looked at him, expecting confusion, but instead the man nodded. Are you from the 21st century? He asked, praying she was from any other time. It wasn't that he didn't want to marry her specifically, but he really didn't want to marry at this time in his life. She nodded, sitting up. How did you know that? My mother and grandmother were both sent back in time by a woman with purple hair named Dr. Lachelle. Perhaps you know her? He'd been raised hearing the stories, and he'd seen the magical devices both his mother and grandmother had. Holly's eyes widened. I do. She's the one who sent me here. Holly was confused. There was no way he could know of Dr. Lachelle unless he knew Heather as well. She couldn't get her hopes up though. Of course, lass. Bryson sighed. I promised my father not an hour ago that I would marry the first lass I met who came from the future, so I suppose you are the future Lady McClain. Who is your mother? Holly asked, hoping against hope it was her friend. Heather. Heather McClain. I do not remember what she called herself before she arrived here, but now she is the Lady McClain. Bryson held out a hand and helped Holly to her feet. I hope you are not averse to a marriage then? If she refused, then surely his father would let him out of his promise. Holly opened her mouth to say something, but then closed it immediately. She stood for a moment sucking in deep breaths and letting them out. Finally, she said, Heather was one of my closest friends and we shared a house. Bryson offered his arm. Let's get back to the keep, and I will reunite you with your friend, and the two of you can plan a wedding. He looked at his brother, who seemed to be hiding a smirk. He wished he could communicate with his twin the way he did with animals, because he had something to say to his brother that he didn't want this Holly person hearing. I can't marry you. Holly protested. Your mother is my age. You can't be old enough to marry. Then she realized Heather didn't have to go back to the same year she had. Time travel made no sense to her, which is why she didn't read it. Science fiction was better for someone with a sciencey bent to their mind, and Holly had not 1 ounce of science in her entire body. Bryson laughed. My mother is old with gray hair, and you are not. I'm quite certain you will find her old enough to be my mother. Kendrick and I are the youngest of 7 sons. Holly stopped walking. Heather had 7 sons? Are you serious? Bryson smiled, finding the small woman beside him amusing. I am quite serious. Kendrick is just minutes older than me. Not only 7 sons, but twins? Poor Heather. Twins with no epidural. Kendrick shook his head. She is obviously a friend of mother's. How many times have we heard her brag that she had twins with no epidural? The phrase makes no sense, no matter how many times she tries to explain it. Holly grinned, amused for the first time since meeting the brothers. It's definitely my Heather then. She will be thrilled to see you, Bryson told her. Kendrick, you should go and fetch grandmother. She'll want to be there as well. Kendrick nodded, and as they entered the village, he went a different way than Bryson led her. Why do you think you need to marry me? Holly asked, still a little confused. Because it's time for me to marry, or so my father insists. I'll soon be the laird of Clan McClain, and all we're waiting for is for me to take a wife. I made a vow to marry the next woman who came back in time, and that woman is you. Holly gave him an odd look, but she had no idea what to say to that. Who would? Chapter 2. As they got closer to the keep, Holly grew more and more nervous. What if Heather didn't want her marrying her son? Of course, to Holly's mind any son of Heather's couldn't even be born yet, and here she was walking with one who, well, he would knock her socks off if she was wearing any. The man was simply too sexy for words. He opened the door of the keep and waved her in before him, calling out loudly, Mother. I have a surprise for you. I'm in the parlor. Heather called out, and at just hearing her friend's voice, Holly burst into tears. She hadn't expected to have such a strong reaction, but it had been months since she'd seen her, and Holly had never believed she would see her former roommate again. Bryson grinned at Holly, nodding for her to precede him. He pointed to the room where his mother waited, and followed closely behind, glad Holly was so short, because he was sure he could see his mother's face over her head. Holly stood in the doorway to the parlor with tears streaming down her face and waited for Heather to look up from the mending she was doing. At least Holly assumed it was mending. It certainly wasn't anything Holly had seen Heather do before. When Heather finally looked up, her eyes widened, and she threw her mending to one side as she jumped to her feet and ran into her friend's arms. "I've missed you and Alyssa so much. I love my life here, but I've missed a lot about home too." Heather pulled back, swiping at a tear. "Did Alyssa come too?" Holly shook her head. "No, you know Alyssa. She had to make sure all of her ducks were in a row and quacking in unison before she could even think about it. I think she'll be joining soon though." "How long ago did you come back?" Heather asked, leading her friend over to the sofa where she'd been doing her mending. "I'm not sure. I blacked out when I got here, but it was within the last few hours." "And Bryson found you?" Heather's eyes were filled with mirth as she asked that. Bryson nodded. I found her. You'd better start planning the wedding." Heather burst into laughter. "You never should have told your father you'd marry the first woman who came back in time." "I know that now." Bryson shook his head ruefully. Heather waved him away with a hand. "Go and fetch your grandmother. She's going to be as excited as I am. Kendrick is fetching her already." "Good. Go find your father and tell him. I believe he's out training the men." His mother obviously wanted to be rid of him so she could talk to her friend, his fiancé. "He is." "Fine. I shall go talk to father. Let's plan the wedding for 3 days hence." Heather wrinkled her nose. 3 days? No. This evening is waiting long enough. I'll go and tell the cook to start a feast. Holly's eyes widened. "Can't we at least wait until tomorrow?" Heather sighed. "I guess we can." She looked at Holly's huge tote bag. "What do you have in there?" Holly laughed. "Oh, just a couple of Kindles and some phones with solar chargers. I brought you a root beer, because I was sure you missed them horribly. And some Twix because I remember those being your favorite." Heather leaned over and gave Holly a loud smacking kiss on her cheek. "I'm so glad you're here. Did you include me in your wish?" Holly nodded. "I was hoping I'd get to see you here. I didn't expect to marry your son though." "How long have you been here?" 35 years. I married the day after I arrived, and I was so nervous. Derek must have thought me a mouse, but I've improved since then. My mother-in-law was sent back by Dr. Lachille as well, but a year before me in our time, and a generation before me in Scottish years. Oh, I bet it was easier to fit in with a mother-in-law who understood where you were coming from. Do the two of you get along well? We do. She's my closest friend here. I think you'll love her. Of course, she'll be your grandmother-in-law, and we were all born within a year of each other, which is insane." Heather shook her head. "I'm still a little baffled by some of the odd things time travel makes happen. But are you glad you did it? That you risked everything to marry a stranger hundreds of years in the past?" Holly wasn't sure how she felt yet, but she knew Heather would have formed an opinion. "I am so happy to be here. This is where I belong. And you'll soon be the lady of Clan McClain and my time in this house will be over." Holly tilted her head to one side. "That doesn't make sense to me. Your sons told me that they were the youngest of your children." She knew Scottish history well enough to know that the oldest son was the one to inherit, not the youngest. Heather grinned. In the McClain family, the youngest son, always the seventh, inherits magical powers and the title of laird. In this case, that's Bryson. As soon as he marries, he becomes laird, and his father and I will move to a cottage in the village. That's weird. What kind of magic are you talking about? Like Samantha on Bewitched? No. Each seventh son just has a little power. Bryson can communicate with and command animals. He was out searching for a wild dog who was known to be hurting people. I didn't see a dog. We'll have to ask him about that when he returns. Heather looked up and smiled. Holly, this is my mother-in-law, Beth, the first person Dr. Lashiel sent back in time. Beth, this is one of my closest friends, Holly. She's here to marry Bryson. Beth smiled. It's so good to meet you. Did you bring a phone? What games do you play? Holly felt a little panicked. Who started a conversation that way? The woman looked a little manic at the idea of a phone and games on it, but she was also obviously elderly. It was hard to know what the right thing to do in that situation was. I do have a phone, and I loaded lots of games on it. I actually brought several Kindles, iPads, and phones. Mostly old ones, but they all have games on them. Well, not the Kindles, of course. Those are all books. Kendrick looked out of place behind Beth. Kendrick, Bryson is telling your father the good news on the training field. You should join them, Heather said. Happily. And Kendrick was gone. Holly dug in her bag for an older model iPhone that she'd loaded games on. She didn't worry about having the latest model, because no one would believe what it was anyway. But here she was, 700 years in the past with two women who were from her time. Life was very strange. She handed the iPhone to Beth. There are lots of games on there. You can keep it. Beth squealed, hugging the phone to her. You have no idea how much I miss my games. Solar charger? Of course, Holly said, digging out a charger and a cord for her. Beth sat down opposite Holly and Heather. So, you're like Heather and me? You love reading Highlanders so much you had to come back in time and marry one? A man was at the door, shaking his head. How many generations of McClains will have blood tainted by the Americans? Holly's eyes widened. You don't want me here? She asked, frightened of the huge man at the door. Heather laughed. Ignore him. That's my husband Derek and Beth's youngest son. He's just being a pill. Derek sighed. I wish I didn't know what it meant to be a pill, but you've called me that often enough. You've been that often enough. Heather shook her head. We're planning a wedding. Holly is insisting on waiting till tomorrow morning, though. Holly? Your old roommate? Derek smiled. I should have known more of you would be coming back here. Holly nodded. We're still waiting on Alyssa. I guess she'll be marrying my son. Your seventh son, Heather emphasized. I'm not joking when I say how very important the seventh son is to this family. Beth nodded emphatically. My husband is a healer, and Derek here is an empath. He prefers not to always be barraged by people's emotions. And Bryson talks to animals? Really? Holly was having a hard time believing all this, but she'd never been a big science fiction or fantasy person, and she'd just traveled back in time. Surely, if she could travel back in time, then it was possible for these men to have magical powers. Bryson stepped out from behind his father. Mother told ye, I see. She did. It's kind of hard to believe, but Heather's never lied to me. Mother doesn't lie, Bryson said. No, she doesn't, Holly agreed. Do you really want to get married so quickly? Bryson shrugged. I promised I would, and I'm a man of my word. Holly was intrigued with how his accent went from Scottish to modern American. He truly had been raised in two cultures. What if I'd rather wait a little while to get to know you? Bryson looked at his father, whose face was stony. You'll keep your word, son. Tomorrow it is, Bryson said, feeling defeated. He never should have promised to marry a girl who came from the future. What was he thinking? He'd been making a joke, thinking it could never happen, but it had, and now he was stuck. Heather frowned. Do you want to have Irish nachos for your wedding feast? Holly laughed. I had them at the Twisted Kilt last night with Alyssa. Well, I've made sure we have potatoes to grow always. We used to have a wonderful man who could make things grow at will, but he was killed in a drowning accident. Even Gavin couldn't save him, Beth said sadly. He was my grandfather-in-law, and a better man you will never meet. Holli frowned. I guess the antibiotics I brought won't be all that important, will they? Heather and Beth exchanged a look. Black Death starts in just 30 years or so. Trust me. We want all the antibiotics you can get your hands on, Beth said. We don't want to lose the entire clan to something that can easily be cured with antibiotics. Will that be changing history too much? Holli asked. Heather shrugged. Beth has a taco night once a week. I'm always having Irish nachos. If we haven't changed the future, then I doubt that antibiotics will. Holli smiled. I brought you something for the next Irish nachos night, she said, reaching into her bag again. She pulled out a bottle of Barks root beer, knowing it was her friend's favorite. Heather looked at the bottle and a slow smile spread across her face. My favorite, Beth grinned. You brought us both priceless gifts. I did, Holli said. I also found a recipe for making root beer. We'll see if we can make it taste right. I'm not sure we can do the carbonation, Heather said, pursing her lips. Then you'll have to drink it without. It's not like it won't be the best root beer you've had in 30 years either way. Heather nodded. This is very true. I'm almost afraid to drink the good one, but no one is going to stop me either. I get it. You don't want to constantly think about it. Holli shrugged. We're all going to have some things to change. I brought something else if you want to see it. She pulled out a book and handed it to Heather. Oh, my goodness. A book on how to make a water closet. Indoor plumbing has never sounded so good. Heather looked at Beth. I think the men could make this work. Maybe. Beth shrugged. It's worth a try, definitely, but I've lived without it for 70 years. I think I can go another few. Holli looked at Beth in surprise. She must be over 90, yet she looked so much younger. How do you stay so young? She finally asked. Beth smiled. I have a husband who heals everything from a sunburn to a stubbed toe. There's no way I'll get old quickly. I had some issues a few years back, and he healed me right up. I have a feeling it would have meant chemo back home. Wow. I had no idea he could heal so much. Holli was surprised a man who lived so long ago could heal with a mere touch. He's a true miracle in this time and in ours. Beth smiled. I can't wait for him to meet you. He was the one who found me lying on the ground with a migraine and healed me immediately. Holli looked over at Bryson, feeling a little shy. What do we need to do to get ready for the wedding? Heather looked at her. We need to get you a proper McClain plaid. Other than that, and planning the wedding feast, we should be just fine. Derek nodded. I can feel that you're hesitant, but I promise you are marrying into a good family. I forgot you were an empath. Don't worry. I won't pry into your feelings any more than absolutely necessary. He looked at Heather. And we need to move to the cottage next to my parents tomorrow. No more laird of Clan McClain. Holli was surprised at how excited he looked to be passing on the leadership of his clan to his son. And no more lady of Clan McClain. It's all yours tomorrow, Heather said with a smile. You can't wait a day or two until we're used to each other before you thrust the job of laird upon me? Bryson asked. You are much more suited for the job than I ever was, Derek told him. You will be a powerful laird, with the ability of riling up the beasts for your side of any war. Bryson nodded. He knew what his father said was true, but he wished it wasn't. I would like the opportunity to walk alone with my lass and get to know her. Heather shrugged. Sure. Beth and I will handle the wedding plans. Holli got to her feet to walk with a man who was obviously older than her, who was the child of a woman her age. It was all so confusing. Where would you like to walk? Around the loch, he said. 'Tis the best place for courting in all McClain land. I see. Holli wasn't sure about courting this man, but she was apparently marrying him the following day, so there didn't feel like much choice. Bryson took her hand and led her toward the back door of the keep and out into the fresh air. Is it spring or summer? Holli asked. He smiled. This is summer here. I hope you don't hate the cold, because the Highlands are not exactly known for their warmth. Oh, please. I lived through many winters in New York. I'm going to be just fine. The loch he'd spoken of was more of a large pond in Holly's mind, and it looked as if it would take less than an hour to walk around it. Yes, it would be good for courting purposes. Why did you want to come back here where there is no indoor plumbing and no phones to keep you in constant contact with other people? Holly looked at him with surprise for a moment, but then she smiled. I forget you were raised by a woman from my time. It makes sense that you know those words, but it doesn't make sense that you know those words. I understand. Yes, I grew up looking at pictures on Mother's iPad before it finally died. I think I was a teenager when she was unable to charge it any longer. She was sad, but we were all sad too. We'd learned about many wondrous things from that iPad. And you and your brother are twins, right? Kendrick? She thought that was the name they'd told her. He nodded. We are. We don't look at all alike, but we were born just minutes apart. Does he have a power as well? She asked. Nay. I think my parents hoped we would both have powers, but it didn't happen. They were careful to watch for who was born first, so they would know who would be the seventh son, and who would be merely the sixth. I think Kendrick is happy he has no powers, though. He's never wanted to have the responsibility of the entire clan on his shoulders. And you did? She asked. Well, I guess I've just always known I would have it, so I never gave it a second thought. I have been dragging my feet to find a lass to marry, though, which is why I declared to Father just today that I would marry the first person I found who had traveled back in time from the 21st century. My brother and I laughed until we found you in the woods. Actually, a squirrel told me you were there, and we went looking for you. The squirrel was worried. Do you talk to squirrels a lot? There was a question she'd never thought she would ask the man she was about to marry. Certainly. Squirrels and birds and dogs. Even a bee once, but I don't normally have the opportunity to talk to insects. What does a bee say? He smiled. I was looking for some honey for some bread the cook had made, and the bee led me right to it, but he begged me to leave some for his hive. And did you? Holly was fascinated by this power of his. She'd always been an animal lover. I did. I took less than a quarter of what was there, and I left the rest for the bees. It was a good arrangement. He shrugged. The animals help me, and I do my best to respect their wishes in return. Chapter 3. By the time they'd walked the entire circumference of the loch, Holly knew she was extremely attracted to the man. She didn't know if she would feel comfortable marrying him, but that would be upon them before she knew it. It was so odd to walk with a man she knew she'd spend the rest of her life with whom she'd just met hours before. When they got back to the keep, Heather and Beth had just finished ironing out their plans for the wedding feast. We're doing tacos and Irish nachos, Beth announced. We couldn't go with just one, since both are delicious. Holly smiled. Two of my favorite things. Sounds good to me. And I get no say in any of it? Bryson asked. Why would you? Heather asked. You didn't want to help with the planning, so you don't get to choose the food. Holly looked at her husband-to-be. What would you have chosen? Oh, it would have been a toss-up between tacos and Irish nachos. He winked at her, and she laughed. I just have to be persnickety on occasion to keep my mother's feathers ruffled. Heather shook her head at him. Go help your father train the men. That will be your job starting tomorrow. Bryson shrugged. It's been mostly my job for the past 10 years. I had to beg for the afternoon off to be able to find the wild dog, and then I find this pretty lass sleeping in the woods instead. Beth frowned. You never found the dog? Take your brother and go find the dog. The last thing you need is that beast ruining the wedding feast. Holly watched as Bryson left. She wished he was wearing pants instead of a kilt. With thighs like he had, she could just imagine the butt on top of him. When Heather caught her watching Bryson leave, she blushed, and tried to cover up her misstep with a question. Does no one in the clan question the corn and potatoes? She asked. Beth laughed. I always say they came from my town of York. What else can we say? We're not about to stop eating them. I hope we're not all ruining history. I mean, what if Shakespeare is never born because we're growing potatoes in Scotland? Heather rolled her eyes. I don't see how one has anything to do with the other. Besides, the New World will be discovered in just a couple of 100 years. Then potatoes and corn will be common. Holly shook her head. But they're not common now. Beth exchanged a look with Heather. Neither are iPhones. No one will see it except the two of you, well, and members of my family. But no one is stupid enough to tell anyone who will write it in a history book. Beth seemed certain it was all okay, and she'd been there longer than anyone else. I might, Holly said. I'm a writer, and I've been writing these wretched space operas as a ghostwriter for years. Now I can write whatever I want to write. Maybe I'll keep a journal of exactly what I do every day. That could be fun. I don't know how smart that would be, Heather said, pursing her lips. Spelling will change a lot in the next 500 years. Holly sighed, rolling her eyes. So, things like changing the way an entire culture eats are fine, but keeping a journal is wrong? I'll have to have the two of you write me up a list of rules that I should follow to avoid changing the future. Beth grinned. We'll do it. Don't think we won't. I'm hungry. I have a couple of snacks in my bag, but is there something I could eat so I can save my Cheetos for later? Heather laughed. You and your Cheetos, are you sure you can live without them? Positive. I think. Holly had eaten Cheetos with her lunch every day for years. She didn't know why she liked the very orange treats so much, but she did, and she hated the idea of going without them. When Dr. Lachelle comes back to see you, tell her you need to have Cheetos delivered every month for the rest of your life. She'll arrange it, Heather said. She will? She comes back to check on us? Holly asked. Beth nodded emphatically. Neither of us had enough forethought to ask for things we would need. You have to do better than us, Holly frowned. Are you two going to get me in trouble? How could anyone be in trouble with sweet Dr. Lachelle? Heather asked. Nah. I'm sure we're the only people who didn't ask for things. Maybe I could have a year's supply of chocolate delivered every month. She shrugged. We do have cocoa and we make brownies every chance we get, but we don't really have milk chocolate around here. That would be nice, don't you think? Sure, Holly wasn't certain how serious the other two women were, so she didn't ask a lot of questions. Instead, she smiled when a tray of cheese was brought in by a servant. Are you really going to move out tomorrow? She asked Heather. Heather nodded emphatically. Yes, yes, yes. 1,000 times yes. It will be so nice to simply be the mother of the laird and not the lady of the clan. It's been way too much for me, being the center of attention all the time. Holly nodded. I can see how that would have been hard for you. But you did it. Great job. Yeah, I did it with a lot of help. And now it's your turn. I'll help how I can, but I'm not stepping back into that role again, no matter what. What would happen if Bryson were to die young? Holly felt a pang as she asked the question, but it had to have happened at least once. Why she felt anything for the man who was still a stranger, she didn't know. Beth frowned at Holly. McClains don't die young. Now, I know what you're thinking. People die young, but this family really doesn't. There's a story about how the family always had 7 sons, and the 7th always got an extra measure of luck for years and years. But then the youngest son of one generation married a girl from a family with powers, and before they knew it, the family changed to the 7th son always having powers. That's really strange, Holly said. Is that true, or just a tale passed down by the family? Beth smiled. My grandmother-in-law was one of the first generation to come to this country. They were in England before. She told me how she heard it, and it seems to be true. As true as oral histories ever are, of course. I wish someone would take good notes on this family. Maybe you should tell me what you know, and I'll write it all down. Then when Dr. Lachelle comes back to check on me, I'll give her the story in written form, and she can find modern-day McClains to share the story with. Wouldn't that be cool? Heather and Beth looked at each other. That's not a bad idea, Heather said. I'm certain there are McClains in our world, wondering where their powers came from. It would be fun to send them the real story. I do hope the powers have continued into the 21st century. Me too, Beth said. It's a fascinating story, the way I heard it. Why not share it with our descendants? Her eyes widened. And the descendants would be from all three of us. I like that idea a lot. Holly smiled. Now she knew her role in this time, at least until she started having sons, 7 if she was to believe the 2 women in front of her. I do too. Let's plan to do that. We'll work on it after the wedding. I'd say after the honeymoon, but I have this odd feeling that there will be no honeymoon, and I probably won't have much time alone with my husband at all with him running this clan and all. You won't. Heather sighed. The first couple of months are really hard. At least they were for us. Beth nodded. Us too. There was no time to fall in love, because Gavin was always off healing someone or other. That would have been really hard. Will Bryson be called away much? Heather shrugged. He sometimes needs to go and negotiate peace with one of the other clans, but for the most part, he stays close to home. He's not called on to deal with animals for others, because other than the Campbells, no one knows that he can speak to animals. The Campbells only know because our clan has a close blood tie with them. Beth grinned. We were a close blood tie generations ago. Now we're simply still allies because of a former close blood tie. My mother-in-law was the daughter of a Campbell laird. Is she still alive? Holly asked, thinking it would be interesting to meet her. Aye. Gavin has kept her alive with his powers, but she's very old. In the 120s somewhere. She doesn't talk about her age, though, and people just know she's been old forever. The clan doesn't really even know of the powers of the men of the family. They haven't noticed them? Beth shook her head. The men find ways of hiding what they're doing. When they make plants grow, they spread dirt on the ground around them, making it seem as if they have some sort of special fertilizer. When they heal, they use a salve or a potion, making people think they know of healing secrets instead of the truth, which is healing is coming from within. Holly frowned. No one questions the age of the McClains? No, they wouldn't dare say anything against the family who rules over them. They know that even if there is something strange happening, the McClains will do anything in their power to keep the people safe. Why would they question? Beth shrugged. They are a practical people. There's no need for them to question the people who keep them safe and healthy. I guess. Heather smiled. Let's talk more about your wedding. The rest of the afternoon was spent with 3 21st century women discussing a wedding to take place the next day in medieval Scotland. Holly wished the whole thing could be recorded for the future, but there was the whole thing about changing history. That wouldn't work at all. Instead, she'd write a letter to the modern-day McClains talking about the family's beginnings. Perhaps it would answer some questions for the descendants of Heather, and Beth, and well, her. It was strange to think that someday she'd be the mother of 7 sons as well. What if I want to have a daughter? Holly asked, interrupting the discussion about what food would be served the following day. Heather and Beth exchanged a look. Heather was the one to answer. You will have lots of nieces. And you'll even have granddaughters. But you will never have a daughter of your own. Holly frowned. You're that certain? As far back as anyone can remember, the McClain family has 7 sons. Never more. Never less. And certainly, no daughters. Not in the line of the 7th sons. The other sons can have daughters, but not the 7th son. Holly nodded. All right then. I need to be resolved to that, don't I? Heather sighed. You do. You already have nieces though, and I already have granddaughters. You'll find once the boys start coming you won't need a girl, because you'll be way too busy to think about girls. How quickly do the boys come? Beth grinned. All within 10 years. We were surprised to see twins in this last generation, but still it was the same. Only the youngest received a power. What exactly does Bryson do with his power? Holli asked. So far, he's done little things to keep wild animals out of the village. I believe that if we were to go to battle, he could rally the animals to help, even the horses that the enemies ride. It's a guess, but we believe it to be true. That makes sense. So the dog he's looking for today? Is it dangerous? Not to Bryson, Heather said quickly. We found out about his powers when he was a small boy, and a wild boar came after the family. We were walking together in the woods. Bryson told it to stop and talk to it for a moment. It was the strangest thing. But at least I knew his power would be helpful. You never know when you'll need to deal with a raging animal. Wow. That's craziness. Holli shook her head. You must have been scared to death. I thought I was going to be the first McClain woman in generations to lose one of her sons, and the seventh son at that. He just walked straight up to it, as if they'd been friends for years. Beth chuckled. I remember the conversation we had when you returned to the village. You were shaking. Heather grinned. I know I was a mess. And Bryson thought I was just a wee bit crazy with the way I reacted. Kendrick had always known he could talk to animals. Neither of them had bothered to mention it to us though. And be ready for my husband to be the first person to know when you're pregnant. It's a little annoying. He'll touch you fleetingly and tell you that you're expecting before you even have any symptoms. But then he'll make sure you keep the baby. He tends to heal pregnant women extremely often, to be certain everything is going the way it should be. Beth grinned. I feel like I overprepared. With someone like him around, I don't need all the drugs I brought back with me. Beth shook her head. My husband is off healing so often that we'll be thrilled to have the medicine. He travels from clan to clan healing people. We made an arrangement that he would heal anyone who asked after our wedding night, when one of our nieces was stolen, to get him to heal one of the other Highland lairds. I guess that makes a lot of sense. Holli shook her head. It's strange that having powers would make the men a target, but I can see how it would. When the family first came here, there was a terrible drought. All of the crops were failing. Our family came to rule this clan when one of our men was able to revive the crops. He also revived the crops of Clan Campbell, without telling them the secret, and that cemented the relationship between the two allies. Wow. I really need to write all this down. Beth smiled. I'll introduce you to my grandmother-in-law. She'll be able to tell you so much more than I can. I don't even want to know how old she is. No, you probably don't. Chapter 4. On the day of her wedding, Holli woke to someone pulling back the curtains covering the windows in the room she slept in. Heather? She asked, blinking her eyes. The sun was barely peeking up over the mountains. Why was she waking her so early? Didn't she understand that sleep was necessary when you just traveled 800 years? Good morning. I let you sleep as long as I could. The wedding is in 2 hours, and I thought you'd want to take a bath beforehand. Heather grinned at her. Just think, in 2 hours, one of my very best friends will also be my daughter-in-law. Weird, huh? Very. Don't you think it's a little bizarre that I came back in time and was told I'm marrying Bryson, but no one ever asked me? Do I have a choice in the matter at all? Holli rubbed her eyes, wishing she could wake up a little faster. Heather's eyes widened. My son didn't ask you? He just told you? She shook her head. Give me 10 minutes. She rushed out the door. Holli sat staring at the spot her friend had just occupied, wondering where she was running off to. Holli hadn't meant to complain about what had happened, just comment on its strangeness. For a woman of her century to just be told who she must marry was utterly ridiculous. When the door opened again, Heather was there with Bryson. I'll give you 2 a minute to talk. She disappeared again, leaving Holli alone with Bryson. Bryson looked at Holli and sighed. My mother has informed me I need to ask you to marry me and not just tell you that you will. She has strange notions at times. Holli laughed. In our time, men ask women to marry them. There are few arranged marriages in our world, Well, I will try to do exactly as mother instructed, but know that it's strange to me. Bryson dropped to one knee. I pray that you'll forgive my audacity in telling you that you'll marry me. Holli nodded, trying to stifle the giggle that was bubbling up inside her. Knowing Heather had forced this huge man to propose properly made her want to laugh. Of course, I forgive you. He smiled, taking her hand. Then will you do me the great honor of becoming my wife and the lady of Clan McClain? I will. He got to his feet, still holding her hand, and pulled her up to stand before him. Now I need to kiss you to seal our betrothal. Holli was surprised. She hadn't expected anything beyond the proposal. Of course, 10 minutes ago, she hadn't even expected the proposal. You don't have to if you don't want to. I find it's not such an onerous task to kiss a beautiful woman. He pulled her to him, and his lips descended to hers. One hand went to the back of her neck and the other to her waist. The kiss was chaste by 21st century standards, but Holli found she was more moved by his kiss than she ever had been by any other man's. She wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him back for all she was worth. When he finally lifted his head, Bryson smiled at her. I find that I'm not averse to marrying you at all. Not averse? I'm not sure that's a compliment. Had no one ever taught the man how to talk to a woman? He considered her statement for a moment. I am happy that you are the one who will sleep beside me every night for the rest of my days. Holli shook her head. You may need lessons in chivalry. Do you think? His eyes twinkled at her as he asked. Maybe, I'll do my best to teach you. She frowned up at him. But for now, I need to get ready for my wedding day. Making a shooing motion with her hand, she said, Go on and get ready. There's little for me to do. I could help you instead. Holli shook her head. I need to take a bath, and I'm not doing that in front of you, so go. He chuckled as he opened the door. I'll see you soon for the wedding. As soon as he left, Heather came back. I have servants bringing up water for your bath. It'll be ready soon. All right. Holli was glad she'd always kept her hair unfashionably long. She would fit in much better in this century that way. Heather left her alone for her bath, coming back in to help her dress. It took me forever to figure out how to dress in one of the plaids. I hope you learn faster than I did. Holli frowned. I never thought of that. I want to keep wearing the dress I came back in. But that's not a McClain plaid. As the lady of the clan, you need to wear the right colors. I guess. Holli watched as Heather made quick work of putting the plaid on her and belting it in the middle. You are really good at it now. 35 years practice does help a bit. I would think so. Holli sat down as soon as Heather was done with her plaid. I need to figure out what to do with my hair. She pulled out a hairbrush and started brushing her long tresses. I can French braid it for you. People around here have never really seen that hairstyle, so you'll look elegant for the wedding. Holli shrugged. Whatever you think. She handed her friend her brush and sat still as her hair was carefully woven. Derek and I will be moved out by different clansmen as soon as the wedding is over. Kendrick is getting a cottage of his own as well. He really wants to stay here, but it isn't a good idea. Why not? Holli asked. This place is huge. She couldn't imagine that it would be hard to have another person living there. It is, but you need time alone with Bryson. Trust me on this. We'd still have time alone, wouldn't we? Heather shrugged. Not enough. And you don't want to have to worry about being quiet. Holli blushed. Heather. Hey, I'm an old married woman now, and I can say these things. I guess you can. It's weird that you're suddenly so much older than me. Heather nodded. To me it's odd, but it's natural too. You're just like I remember you, but I've lived a whole life since I last saw you. She tucked the end of the braid under and fastened it with a barrette. I wish I could just use a scrunchie, but it's going to be a few centuries before they're invented. I'm not sure I'd want a scrunchie for my wedding, but how am I going to throw my hair up in a ponytail every day? Holli had never been one to fuss much with her hair. There will be a maid assigned to help you. I just have to find someone I can totally trust. It's hard to hide the fact that you came from the future. For my maid, I had Beth's maid's daughter, and we all knew we could trust her. There'll be someone we find, and it'll work out perfectly. You'll see. I hope so. I can't imagine having to figure out how to deal with my own hair. I'd have to cut it short, and I have a feeling that would stand out as much as a scrunchie. Oh, it would. Heather stood in front of her. Okay, stand up and let me see the full effect. Holly stood, turning when Heather told her to. Am I okay? You're beautiful as always. Bryson will be swallowing his tongue when he sees you. Heather opened the door when she heard a knock. Go ahead and take the water down and get ready for the ceremony. The servants who had entered obeyed her. It'll be wonderful to have a new laird and lady, not that we were unhappy with the ones we had before, an older man said. I hope you feel that way in a year, Holly said with a smile. Her stomach was churning. She wasn't sure that a laird was whom she wanted to marry. Maybe a man who was respected but had no real position of authority would be better. Of course, at this point, it didn't matter much. She was marrying a laird and that's all there was to it. Heather led Holly down the stairs into the great hall where people were already gathering for the wedding. Agnes, this is Holly, the future lady of Clan McClain. Other women gathered around to be introduced, and Holly felt a little overwhelmed. She was actually relieved to see the priest who was there to perform the wedding. Does the clan have its own clergyman? Heather shook her head. No, we share with Clan Campbell, but as we're blood relations, we sometimes act as one clan. It's nice to have a clan we're so close to. I'm sure it is. Bryson walked into the great hall then, and the priest called everyone to gather around for the wedding. Bryson took Holly by the hand and went and stood directly in front of the man. She was glad he was clutching her the way he was because she was uncertain if she'd be able to stand there and go through with the wedding if he wasn't holding her there. When the priest pronounced them man and wife and told Bryson to kiss his bride, Holly happily lifted her lips for his kiss. Instead of leaning down and giving her a peck on the lips as she expected, Bryson bent her back over his arm and kissed her passionately. Even though she knew it was for the sake of the people watching, she clutched him, kissing him back. There were many cheers from the clansmen. Holly blushed as she was set back on her feet. Welcome to our clan, Lady McClain, Bryson whispered in her ear. She heard the words echoed over and over as the wedding feast wore on. She gratefully ate her Irish nachos and met so many people she knew she'd never remember them all. She wanted to get away so she could journal about her wedding day, wanting it to always refresh the memories of this important day. She saw little of her husband during the feast, with him only appearing by her side for the wedding toasts. I need to go meet with my men again, he said softly before hurrying away. When Holly found Heather again, she asked what Bryson was up to that he felt the need to stay away from her on their wedding day. Oh, he's setting up his second in command and deciding who his advisors will be. It's almost like when a new president is inaugurated. He may not do things the way his father does. He doesn't have to. Instead, he'll decide who will be around him to help him govern the clan. Is it that way with every clan? Holly asked. It certainly wasn't that way in the book she read about the Highlands, but she didn't care. Somehow, she'd figure it out. It would just take a little time and lots of questions of the people she trusted. I don't think it is. I mean, we're a clan different than any other with the youngest son of each generation being the next laird. And the laird doesn't usually come to power until after his father has died. In this clan, it's on the laird's wedding day. We are different, but I think that's what makes our clan so special. Holly nodded. Makes sense. Sort of. It does, Heather said. It gives the former laird time to live in peace after he's spent so many years serving his clan. And the previous laird moving out is different too now that I think about it. I guess this clan doesn't worry about how others do things then? Heather shook her head adamantly. Not at all. The other clans know we do things differently, but it doesn't bother anyone. The other clans study the youngest son of our laird to try to decide what kind of laird he'll be, but our clan and our laird is treated the same way as other lairds are. I'm not going to worry about how other clans do things then. Just about our clan. That's really a wise decision. I tried to learn about others and our own, and it made my head hurt. I had to have Gavin heal me. Holli grinned. He's your father-in-law, right? Beth's husband? Yes. Heather stopped when a group of people were talking loudly. What's wrong? The wild dog came back. People are saying the new laird cared more about marrying than hunting down a dangerous dog. They're unhappy, a woman standing nearby whose name Holli couldn't remember answered. Can no one else hunt the wild dog? Holli asked. It seemed strange to her that the leader of the clan was expected to hunt down a dog on his wedding day. No one does it as well as the laird does. He finds wild animals and takes care of them with little effort, but the other men risk their lives doing it. Somehow the laird never gets hurt, but other men do, the woman answered. Holli looked around and saw that Bryson was standing with a group of men, all of them tall and strong, and bearing a striking resemblance to her husband. Bryson walked to Holli. I must go out and take care of the dog I was hunting when we found you. My brothers are going with me. I'll be back as soon as I can be. Holli nodded, standing on tiptoe to kiss his cheek. Be careful. Always, he said, heading for the door with his 6 brothers trailing behind him. I guess that means the wedding feast is over, Holli said to Heather. Heather laughed, shaking her head. Are you kidding? This feast will go until the early hours of the morning. The kitchen staff is making up another meal as we speak. The Highlanders are hard workers, but when there's an excuse to have a party, they jump at it and party for as long as they can get away with. Oh, Holli said. She wished she could get away for just a little while. There were too many people and too much noise. Why don't we go for a walk? Being away for an hour won't hurt a thing. I doubt if anyone would even notice. Sounds good to me, Holli responded, heading for the front door of the keep. Heather caught Holli's arm. No, we'll go out through the kitchen. It would be rude to go out the front door when the party is for you. But it's not rude to go out the kitchen door? Holli asked. Heather shrugged. Not if no one notices. This way they think we went to the kitchen to help or deal with a problem. No one will suspect that we just need fresh air after being cooped up all day. Heather introduced Holli to the kitchen staff. This is Fiona, she's our head cook, and the best cook anyone could ever ask for. Holli smiled. It's nice to meet you, Fiona. Lady McClain. Heather tilted her head to one side. How old is your Maisie now? She's 14, and a smart one. Fiona was obviously full of pride about her daughter. Is she discreet? Fiona nodded. She never tells the secrets of others. Never. How would you feel about her being Lady McClain's maid? Fiona smiled, her hand going to her heart. I would be honored if she was chosen for such an important task. Bring her to the keep with you in the morning, and we'll talk to her and see if she'd like the job. Heather smiled. I'm so glad I thought of her. I was trying to decide who would be the best maid for Holli. Maisie will be thrilled to be thought of. Thank you, Lady McClain. Heather shook her head. It's just Heather now. Holli is Lady McClain. It might be hard to remember to call you that, Fiona said, shaking her head. You've been Lady McClain since I was a girl. I know, but you'll get used to it. Heather led Holli out the door and toward the lock, where she'd walked with Bryson the previous evening. Bryson brought me here. Yeah. Everyone comes here to court, but I like it as just a place to calm my mind. Water is always helpful. It is. Holli smiled. I love that there's a pond so close. A pond? This is our lock. Heather grinned. Looks kind of like a pond to me too, though. While they walked, they could hear the brothers in the woods. There's no chance Bryson will be hurt hunting down the wild dog? Heather shook her head. None at all. As soon as they spot the dog, he'll be able to communicate with him through a form of telepathy. I don't know how else to describe it. But if he tells the dog to go and do something, he will. I can't wait to see that happen. He told me he'd even talked to a bee once. He's always talked to animals. It's odd to me, but it works for him. He saved my life more than once by talking to an animal that seemed bent on killing me. His great-grandfather could make himself intangible, and he once saved his future wife's life by sticking his hand into a wolf's chest and removing the heart when it wanted to hurt her. All of the men have stories like that. What about Derek? Any fun stories there? Heather shrugged. He's always been able to understand the minds of the other lairds in meetings. He's good as well, but in a different way. I'm just glad he's not a healer like Beth's Gavin. Gavin hardly has time for anyone or anything because he's constantly being called away to heal someone. I would get tired of that really fast. I would too, Holly said. I'm glad that's not the power Bryson has. But it would also be good if your seventh son had that power. Healers are the most valuable of the different powers. Then I'll hope I have a son who is a healer, and a daughter-in-law who knows how to be patient. Very patient, Heather said with a laugh. Chapter 5. The wedding feast was dying down by the time the 7 brothers returned. The dog will not be bothering our people again, Bryson told everyone, and there was a cheer throughout the keep. Holly couldn't help but wonder if Bryson had hurt the animal, using his powers. She wasn't a vegan or even one who marched for animal rights, but she didn't think a man with his powers should be using them against animals. When the last guests left, it was in the wee hours of the morning, and Holly was barely able to stand on her own 2 feet, she was so tired. Bryson led her up the stairs to the master bedroom, and as soon as the door closed, she asked him what he'd done to the dog. I'm not sure if a man with your powers over animals should be hurting them in any way. Wouldn't word spread to the other animals what you'd done, and then they'd all stop obeying? Holly asked, hiding a yawn behind her hand. She knew the topic should really wait for the morning, but she had to know what kind of man she'd married before she could sleep. Bryson frowned at her. Of course, I don't hurt animals. We found the dog, and I asked him to not return to McClain land. I showed him our boundaries, and he left, promising to never hurt one of my people again. I didn't know you could do that. It's been bothering me since you left. He sat beside her, both of them still fully clothed. I consider myself a champion of the animals in our land. If one of them needs something, they come to me. I would never hurt them. It goes against everything I believe in. Good. I was hoping you felt that way. I do. But what if I didn't? You are now married to me. What would you have done? I'd have begged Dr. Lashiel to come here and take me back to the 21st century. I don't think people should hurt animals for sport. For food? Yes, I totally agree that needs to happen. But no one should be hurting any critter for sport. Clan McClain does not allow hunting for sport on our lands. If we hunt, it is because there is a dangerous animal, and I convince the animal to leave, or we will sometimes hunt for food. I do not take part in hunts for food, because I can hear the animal crying out in pain to me, and it is too much for me to bear. Holly rested her head on his shoulder. Thank you for explaining it to me. I do believe we need some more time to get to know one another before our marriage can be consummated. If you came into this room tonight, believing that I could hurt an animal, then you do not know me well enough to be my wife in anything other than name. She sighed. I think you're right. I don't feel like we know each other at all, and I would like to before our marriage goes any further. I agree with this. Tomorrow is the Sabbath. Perhaps after Mass, we could go on a picnic, and I could show you some more of McClain land. Do you ride? He asked. She shook her head. No. I never had the opportunity to learn. Then I will teach you. I'll find my most docile mount, and we shall go a short distance and spend some time just talking while we eat our picnic. Would that make you happy? She nodded. That would make me very happy. She looked at the bed. Would you like for me to stay in the room I was in last night? Would that be better for you? He shook his head. No, I do not want people to think there is something amiss with our marriage already. Sleep here. She nodded, walking across the room to a screen that was put up for privacy. She changed into the nightgown that was there and walked back into the main room to go to bed. Bryson didn't feel the need for privacy apparently, because he stripped there in front of her before climbing under the covers. Once they were both settled in bed, she said, let's ask each other one question before we sleep. If we want to get to know one another, that would at least be a good way for us to start. He laced his fingers together under his head. All right. You ask first. Why haven't you already married? It's obvious your parents have been wanting you to marry for a while. He shrugged. I never met a lass that I couldn't live without. My father told me when I was a boy that I would know I'd found the right lass when I didn't want to spend any time away from her. I see. She wished she could ask if he could live without her, but it wasn't time for her to ask a question, and she was sure the answer wouldn't please her. They'd known each other for less than 48 hours, after all. Now I get to ask you a question. Is that right? Yes, that's right. Mother told us all stories about how different life was where she came from, so where you came from. She said that unmarried people would openly live together, and no one would even bat an eye. Did you ever live with a man before you came back in time? Holly shook her head. No, I didn't. I rarely dated, and when I did, it never went further than a kiss goodnight. There have been no serious relationships in my life. This pleases me. He didn't know what else to say to her. I'm glad. She stretched and yawned. I have to sleep. This was the longest day I've had in a very long time. For me as well. He rolled to his side and kissed her, a short, platonic kiss. Sleep well. As Holly's eyes closed, she thought about everything that had changed for her in 48 hours. Could life be more different than it had been? Both of them slept late the following day. When Bryson finally woke, he dressed and went to the kitchen to request a special picnic lunch for him and his lady. On his way back upstairs, he ran into Kendrick. Is something wrong? Kendrick shook his head. No, but it seems strange that we're sleeping under different roofs for the first time in our lives. I know it does. Are you planning to continue to take your meals here? Bryson wasn't certain how his new wife would feel about that, but he liked the idea of at least having meals with his brother. They had been each other's shadows for so long, it felt strange to spend time apart. As long as your lady allows it, I do. It's not as if I can cook for myself. Bryson smiled. Then you should eat with us whenever you'd like. We will be having a picnic for our noon meal, he said. You are not invited to come along. He paused for a moment. Maybe it would be best if you ate with Mother and Father for a couple of weeks, just until Holly and I have gotten to know each other better. Kendrick nodded. I can wait a couple of weeks, but for now, I'll go tell the kitchen to make enough to feed me as well. I can eat here alone. You could go and have lunch with our mother, or grandparents. I suppose I could. I feel a bit useless, I'm afraid. I've always been the future laird's twin brother who did everything with him. Now, I'm just Kendrick. Mayhap it's time for you to go and find a lass of your own. Bryson knew he'd miss his brother as well, but while his brother felt as if he'd been left with nothing to do, Bryson's duties had quadrupled overnight. Mayhap. Kendrick sighed. Will you still allow me to help you train the men? Of course. It's a job we were taught to do together. I never thought to do it alone. The door to the keep opened and closed. The building was a place where the entire clan would gather, and no one thought anything of walking in and out whenever they wished. Bryson looked at the young girl who had walked in. May I help you? The girl looked nervous. If you please, laird. I am here to be a maid for your new lady. Who sent you? I'm the daughter of Fiona, the head cook. Your mother asked her to send me over to take care of Lady McClain. Bryson looked the girl up and down. Can you be discreet? The girl nodded emphatically. Aye, laird. Go to the top of the stairs. She is the door on the left. Knock before entering. I'm not certain if she is still asleep or not. Aye. She hurried toward the stairs, obviously intent on taking care of his wife. He wished he'd thought to ask for her name, but he knew there was time enough for that later. Holly woke to a knock on the door, and she grudgingly opened her eyes. Yes? A girl came in. I am Maisie, and I've been sent to be your maid. Holly struggled to sit up in bed. If she slept another 6 hours, it still wouldn't be enough. "Hello, Maisie." She looked to see that Bryson was no longer in bed beside her. "Have you seen my husband? He is below stairs talking to his brother. Do you need me to fetch him?" Holly shook her head. "No. I need to get up and get dressed. Can you help me? I haven't yet learned to fashion the pleats in my plaid." I can help." 15 minutes later, Holly was dressed, and her hair was in a thick braid, cascading down her back. "Thank you, Maisie." "You are most welcome." Maisie hurried to the bed. "I'll tidy up here while you go speak with the laird." Holly nodded, unsure what she'd find when she left the room. Strangely enough, she'd never been in the keep by herself outside of where she'd slept the first night, and now this room. She hurried down the stairs and found her husband still talking with his twin. "Are we too late for Mass?" she asked. Kendrick laughed. "Aye. The priest has gone on to Clan Campbell already. You have slept half the day away." Holly felt as if she'd done something terribly wrong. "I didn't mean to sleep all day." "You needed the sleep," Bryson said, putting an arm around her shoulders. "I have the kitchen working on a picnic for us, if you'd still like to go." Holly nodded. "I'm a little nervous about riding a horse, but I'm sure it will be fine, if you'll help me." "I will." Bryson looked around. "Where's the girl who came to be your maid? I can't remember her name for anything." "Maisie is upstairs tidying up our room." "I presume that means making the bed and dealing with any laundry left about." "Aye," he said. "Come into the parlor with me, and we'll talk about your duties and what a typical day will be like." Kendrick followed them into the parlor, sitting in a chair, while they sat together on the sofa there. "It will be your duty to instruct the kitchen staff. You will let them know what you want to eat for the evening meals, and you will direct the maids. Maisie's job will be to see to your needs and nothing else. She will do some cleaning up after you and me. She will be a companion for you as well." Holly nodded. "I don't know that I need a companion, but it doesn't sound like a terrible thing either." "You will be grateful for her. Mother was very grateful for her personal maid when she became the laird's wife." "All right. You will also see to my comforts. Make sure my clothes are always clean. You do not need to clean them yourself, but you must instruct the maid to take care of them." "I see." The duties all seemed quite basic to Holly, and nothing really surprised her. "May I take time for writing down some of the lore about Clan McClain? I have an idea to write a letter to your family in the 21st century and send it back with Dr. Lachille when she comes to see me. I think that would be fine. Just be certain that no one else sees it. Not many women can read or write. I could teach the women here to read and write if you'd like." Holly liked the idea of contributing to the literacy of women. He shook his head. "I do not think that would be wise. Allow women to begin reading as they will over time. There's no need to teach them now." "All right." Holly didn't agree with that, but she wasn't about to argue with her husband. After just one day of marriage, she didn't need to be a thorn in his side. "Kendrick would like to eat his meals with us from now on, if you wouldn't mind. He won't go on our picnic with us, of course, but most meals he would like to take here." "I don't have a problem with that at all." Holly gave Kendrick a tentative smile. Though the two men were twins, they looked nothing alike, and Kendrick seemed much more distant to her. As if he didn't approve of their marriage or something. "Thank you, my lady," Kendrick said, nodding his head. Holly rolled her eyes. "I'm your sister. Call me Holly." "I'm certainly not going to call you anything but Kendrick." "I will do so then." He got to his feet. "I will go be certain the cook knows to make me whatever she is cooking for the two of you, so I have something for my noon meal today." "Don't you cook at all?" The brothers looked at each other and laughed. "Why would we cook?" "That's women's work," Kendrick said as he left the room. Holly narrowed her eyes. "I would think your mother would have taught you that women are more than the work they do." "She has. I know that I'm to cherish you and care for you. Your job will be to have my bairn." No matter who had raised him, he was a product of his century. It was a hard thing to remember for Holly, But she hadn't expected to marry a man who was raised by a 21st-century mother, so she needed to simply be happy that he wasn't an absolute pig in his beliefs. "I will do my best." "And I will raise the bairn? Or will there be someone to help me with them?" "Maisie will help you with them, and my mother and grandmother of course. They both look forward to the next generation being born. It will be their pleasure to help." "I see." Why she thought he wouldn't have the same antiquated views as other men in his century did, she didn't know, but she found she was very disappointed in him. What would she have to do to get him to understand what a jerk he was being? Chapter 6. Shortly after, Bryson led Holli out to the stable, where he chose his mildest gelding for her to ride. "What's her name?" Holli asked, stroking the horse's nose. "It's a gelding, and he doesn't have a name. He's the horse we use to teach new riders on, and he's in a particularly good mood today. He's promised me he'll be gentle with you." Bryson watched her as the stablemaster saddled his horse as well as the gelding he'd chosen for her to ride. "Can I name him then?" she asked. She had no idea what a gelding was, but Bryson obviously didn't like her calling the horse she, so she'd switched to he. "Easy enough. He doesn't need a name." "Sure, he does. What will I call him while I'm riding him if he doesn't have a name?" "Horse?" Bryson suggested as he helped her climb atop the horse. "Oh, that would be so impersonal." "He's not a person," he pointed out. He knew his father had many issues with his mother's strange ideas when they had first married as well. "Well, that's no reason to treat him like an animal. Let's call him Thunder." "Why would we call him that?" "Because it's a strong manly horse name. It'll make him feel better about himself." Bryson exchanged a look with his stablemaster, who was hiding a laugh. "Let's go," he said, shaking his head. There was no way he was going to convince her that the gelding would never feel manly. "I thought I'd take you toward the Campbell's land. It's a short distance from here, and there's a beautiful field of heathers that we can picnic in." "Did you bring a blanket?" she asked. "Aye." He demonstrated how she should use her heels to get the horse moving forward and explained how to tell the horse which way they should go. After a few moments when she felt ill at ease, Holli enjoyed the ride. She followed behind Bryson, through the woods and into a huge field of flowers. "It's beautiful. This is how I always imagined the Highlands looking." "'Tis the most beautiful place on earth," he said softly. "You haven't seen the whole world." "How can you say that?" "I've at least seen pictures of most of the countries of the world. I don't know, but I do know this is the most beautiful place." He had a passion and love for his homeland that every other Highlander he knew shared. Despite her argument that he couldn't know, he knew with everything inside him that he was in the most beautiful place on earth. She could argue until he could no longer hear anything, and his mind wouldn't be changed. When he stopped for their picnic, he helped her from the horse, taking her by the waist and lifting her down. Holli felt as if her skirts were in the way, and she longed for her favorite pair of old blue jeans, but she knew she'd stand out like a sore thumb wearing them here. He handed her the blanket tied behind his saddle, and he removed their meal from the saddlebags. She spread the blanket, pleased that he was courting her in such an old-fashioned way. This was the way she'd always pictured a man taking her for a picnic. When she spotted ants coming onto the blanket, she sighed. "We have guests at our picnic." "Allow me," he said, eyeing the ants. After a moment, he smiled. "They have agreed to leave our picnic alone if we will leave them some small morsels after the meal." She smiled. "I never thought anyone could bargain with ants, but it sounds like a very good deal to me." As they ate the lunch packed for them, Holli asked him another question about his life. "If you could choose to do anything in the world, what would you choose to do?" He looked surprised at the question. "I would not change my life. I am laird of Clan McClain, as I've always known I would be." "There's nothing you'd rather do? You don't want to be an artist? You don't want to farm?" "Nothing at all. Perhaps I would enjoy a way to work with animals more than I do, but I've always known this was my destiny, and I'm quite content to fulfill it." He didn't understand her need to make all decisions for herself. It made no sense to him. He was honoring his parents by doing what they expected of him. "That's great. She wasn't sure she'd learned more about him with her question, but at least he seemed happy with his life. My turn to ask a question, yes? Yes, Holly said with a nod. She had no idea what he was going to ask, but hopefully it would be something she felt comfortable answering. Their backgrounds were so completely different. She couldn't help but wonder how Heather and Beth had made it through the early part of their marriages. In your previous life, what did you do? My mother did something where she massaged people and made their muscles ache less. Did you do that as well? He hated the idea of her hands on another man, though his mother had explained there was nothing sexual about a massage. It didn't seem right to him. I wrote books, boring horrible books that I was paid a good sum of money to write, but I hated every minute of it. She took a bite of cheese. I wanted to write other books, but my books didn't pay the way the ones I wrote did. So, I wasted my life writing things I hated. But you read and write well enough you could write a book. That's magnificent. The only women I know who read are mother and grandmother, and they read because they're from your time. Do you read? She asked, hoping the question wouldn't offend him. He laughed. With my mother being the reader she is, I was never given a choice about whether I would learn to read. Father gave her an hour with us every day to teach us about reading and how to write, but then he worked with us the rest of the day, starting us with wooden swords we learned to fight with. Oh, that sounds amazing. I'm glad you enjoyed your childhood as much as you did. It sounds like you were always busy. Was there time to play? Oh, of course. I played a great deal with my brothers. We swam in the loch, and fought with swords, as well as pretending to be mighty warriors. He shrugged. We also were taught to be the future of our clan. I know that must sound strange, but we all knew that we held the key to everything our clan would someday be. Me more than the others, of course, but all of my brothers are integral parts of the clan. They are all among my advisors. How many advisors will you have? She asked. She knew he'd been choosing them the previous evening at their wedding feast. I have chosen 10. My 6 brothers and my father. My grandfather. And then there are 2 other men I respect and have asked to help me. The men he'd chosen were important to the future of the clan as well. He hoped she understood the huge responsibility that had been laid upon his shoulders at their wedding. But you've chosen mostly family members. Does that bother the people of the clan? Not at all. They all know that I trust my family more than others. And they know that every member of my family would lay down his life for the good of the clan. There are no hard feelings when it is known that it's all in the best interest of the people. I suppose not, she said. It still seemed a little strange to her, and the word nepotism sprang to mind, but it was a different world here than it had been back in 21st century New York. Is the food to your liking? He asked. It's wonderful. I really like this brown bread and the cheese. Good. If there is ever anything that isn't good, you have every right to tell the cook to make it differently. He took a bite of the bread in question. Do you have the ability to cook? She nodded emphatically. I cooked all the time. Your mom, Alyssa, and I would take turns cooking. We'd eat out 1 night a week, and then the 3 of us would each take 2 nights to cook. Eat out? He asked. We would pay for our food to be cooked in an establishment. Then no one would have to cook or clean the dishes. It would just cost a little money. She thought back over the many meals the 3 of them had eaten together, usually at the Twisted Kilt. Her life had been one she'd truly enjoyed, but the possibilities that came with time travel had been too good to resist. Ah yes. Mother has mentioned that practice. I cannot imagine letting strangers cook my food in that way, but I suppose it seemed normal then. Why wouldn't you want strangers to cook for you? She asked. That made no sense to her at all. I'd been the heir apparent of Clan McClain since birth. There are enemies that would cripple the entire clan by killing off the man who is to become laird. Poisoning is quite easy. He shrugged as if it meant nothing to him that he could have been killed at any time. She stared at him for a moment, a bit shocked by his words. Do you really worry about things like that? I'm just as surprised that you don't worry about poisoning. It's such a simple way of getting rid of an enemy. I never really had to worry about enemies. People will bully you, sure, but nothing more. She paused as a bird landed on his shoulder. She'd never seen anything like it. He turned his head to the bird, gazing into its eyes. He sat still for over a minute, obviously communicating with the bird. Finally, he stroked its head, and it flew away. What was that about? Holli asked. It had been fascinating to her, watching him seem to really communicate with the bird. Until that very moment, she hadn't been totally sure that she believed he had the ability to talk to animals. There is a group of several men, birds don't count well, coming through our land. She thinks they are a hunting party. I need to go meet with them. He got to his feet and began picking up the remains from their picnic. What? You just told me that you're in danger of being murdered. How can you go and meet with strangers not even knowing why they are in your territory? Because I'm the laird. Come with me, we'll ride back to the village and I'll get several men to ride out with me. He frowned. I wish I'd thought to tie a note to the bird's leg and send her back to the keep. Of course, I didn't bring pen and paper on a picnic. Holli didn't have to be told twice. She got to her feet and picked up the last of the food left from the picnic. There was half a loaf of bread, and Bryson took it from her, tore it in half, and threw half on the ground. I did promise the ants, he said as she watched. Within minutes they were riding back toward the keep. Just go ahead, I can stay on well enough to get back to the village, she said, not wanting him to miss his opportunity to meet with the men. They sounded like hunters to her, but she knew so little about the way things really were in medieval Scotland that she couldn't trust herself. He shook his head. I canna risk you being caught out alone. He kept his horse at a trot, matching her horse's speed. All will be well. Bryson's eyes were constantly looking around for danger. He worried someone would try to take his wife from him. As soon as they were back at the stable, Bryson barked out orders. Get 5 more horses saddled, strong horses. When you have finished, deal with my wife's gelding. Aye. The stable master immediately set to work, not wasting a moment of time. Bryson dismounted, and then helped Holli get down. Go to the keep. If any of my brothers are there, tell them to join me as I search for these men. Holli nodded, standing on tiptoe to kiss Bryson's cheek. Be careful. He smiled as he watched her run back toward their home. She was a good wife, even if she was a little confused about the culture of his land. When Holli got to the keep, Heather was there, talking to Kendrick. Holli didn't hesitate to interrupt. There are men on McClain land. A group of them. Bryson is readying horses and getting ready to ride out to meet them. Kendrick nodded to both of them and took off at a run for the stables. Holli looked at Heather. How dangerous is this? Heather shrugged, looking both calm and frightened at the same time. This happens about once a month. As long as it's not a war party, everything will be fine. Bryson is just being smart by taking men with him to face them. I see. Holli felt a little relieved. We were on a picnic, and a bird came and sat on Bryson's shoulder and told him about the men. Does that happen often? Heather smiled at that. More often than you'd think. Most animals wait to talk to him until he has spoken first, but he has some birds trained who live around each border. They come to him if there are men who are unfamiliar. It was hard for him to get them to initiate conversations with him, but they do well with it now. That's so weird. Tell me about it. It's been that way his whole life, and I have to act like it's the most normal thing in the world, even though I think it's crazy. Heather led Holli into the parlor. I'm going to work on some mending while we're sitting here. Holli frowned. Then I'll play games on my phone. She pulled her phone from where she'd tucked it away in her cleavage. Good thing I have built-in pockets. Heather laughed. You do have to keep that thing hidden except when you're in the keep with just servants or family. I know, it's strange. Holli pulled up the match 3 game she'd been playing for the past few months. She'd added new games as well, but there sure wasn't unlimited space on cell phones. It would last for a while though. Minutes later, Beth walked into the keep. When she saw what Holli was doing, she pulled the phone Holli had given her from her cleavage. I'm glad you like match 3 games. They're my favorite. Me too. Holly grinned at the older woman. What's going on? There was a group of men riding out of the village. One of Bryson's spy birds saw a group of men coming into our territory. He's riding out with some men to see why they're here. Heather stabbed her needle into the mending she was working on. Beth smiled. Gavin never had spy birds. He just had to post guards. This is a wiser use of manpower, Heather said, shrugging. It's cheating too, but it works, so why not do it? I don't know if there's such a thing as cheating when clan security is at stake, Holly said, not looking up from her phone. Heather looked at Beth. All of my friends are cheeky, I'm afraid. Beth smiled. I like it. It takes a cheeky woman to be able to deal with one of my grandsons. It does at that, Heather said, grinning. Don't talk about me like I'm not here. Holly pumped her fist into the air. I've been trying to pass that level for more than a month. I did it. Perhaps it just took being hundreds of years back in time to get through the tougher levels. Too bad you can't buy power-ups, Beth said. This phone has a ton more Candy Crush than I had when I came here 70 years ago. I still think the whole thing is weird. Holly shrugged. Do you ever get used to the weird things that are part of time travel? Heather shook her head emphatically. If I was a sci-fi reader, this would be harder for me, but I'm just a simple romance reader. Weird stuff can be overlooked as long as there aren't too many grammatical errors or spelling mistakes. Those make me crazy. Beth shook her head. After 70 years here, I'll read anything that doesn't move, and that means grammatical errors and all. I feel privileged to have the opportunity to read, even if it's utter drivel. Someone spent time crafting the story for us, and I have to respect them for that. I couldn't write a book to save my life. Holly sighed. I still want to write a book where I make up all of the plot points, and no one is in outer space or getting kidnapped. Space operas are for the birds. Be my guest, Beth said. Write all you want. I'll read every word and thank you for writing them. I won't even tell you if you misspell some stuff. Holly couldn't help but smile at that. Maybe I'll dictate a book into my iPad. I got a dictation program before I left, hoping I could do just that. Then you two can read it and tell me I'm brilliant. Heather grinned. I would. I've always thought you were brilliant even when you were writing that ridiculousness you wrote before. Why did you write it if you didn't like it? Beth asked. I was a ghost writer. I was paid to follow an outline, so follow an outline, I did. Holly tapped her phone. Okay, I'm trying for the next level. Talk amongst yourselves. What's for supper tonight? Heather asked. Holly looked up, her eyes wide. I have no idea. Hurry to the kitchen and talk to Fiona. Most likely she's started making something without your input, but if not, you need to get her started on what you want. Holly set her phone down. No one touch my phone. I only have one life left, and I'm leaving it mid-level. She hurried from the parlor, through the great hall, and into the kitchen. Fiona, I'm so sorry. I was supposed to meet with you to discuss supper. Don't worry about it. I'm making a thick, hearty stew. We'll meet tomorrow morning and get into a routine together. Fiona smiled at her new mistress. How is Maisie doing for you? Holly smiled. She's wonderful, thank you for sharing her with me. Truthfully, she'd forgotten Maisie was upstairs, and she hoped the girl was finding fun things to do with her time. Instead of returning to the parlor, she hurried up the stairs and found Maisie sitting on the bed, mending something. I forgot you were up here. You need to come down to talk with Heather and Beth and me. Oh, I couldn't. I'm just a servant. You're going to be so much more than a servant. You'll know secrets about me no one else can know, so you are now family. Come on. Holly hated the idea of leaving her upstairs alone when she could be down talking to them while she mended. Are you certain they will not mind? I'm positive. Come on. Holly went back down the stairs and returned to the parlor. Fiona is making stew, and Maisie is going to join us. Heather nodded. Sounds good. Chapter 7. With his man at his side, Bryson rode to meet with the men in their territory. When they were spotted, he realized there weren't enough men to be a war party. They all seemed armed as if for the hunt, but they weren't there to cause mischief. He stopped his horse beside them, affecting the brogue of his father. "Why are ye on McClain land?" he asked. One of the men came forward. Bryson didn't recognize their plaid, but there were several clans he'd never had the pleasure of meeting. "Me father was wounded, and the healer says he will not make it. He said his only hope is for me to fetch Gavin McClain, the best healer the Highlands has ever seen. Gavin McClain is me grandfather, and he will happily heal whoever needs healing, but he is an old man. Is it possible to bring your father here?" Bryson knew his grandfather would happily ride out to take care of the man, but it would be hard on him. The men looked at each other, and the leader nodded. "Aye. We will bring him here. Our land is a 3-day ride from here, but we only left him an hour's ride away, for fear the rest of the journey would be too hard." Bryson thought about the problem. "I think me grandfather can travel an hour's ride, just not 3 days' ride. I will fetch him, and me men will stay with you." The man called to him, "Are ye the laird of Clan McClain?" Bryson nodded. "I am. I will return in minutes." He rode at a swift speed to the village and straight to the cottage his grandparents shared. "Grandfather?" Gavin called back. "Aye? Ye are needed to heal a man. He's an hour's ride from here. Can ye manage? They worry the rest of the journey would kill him." When Bryson was talking to other Scots, he tried to keep his diction as theirs was. In his home, and now with his wife, it was easier to fall into the modern speech patterns of his mother and grandmother. Gavin came into sight, his satchel at his side. He used the potions in the satchel to pretend to heal with medicine and not his touch. Gavin was well into his 90s, but he was as spry as ever, insisting on healing anyone who needed him. "I'm ready." Instead of wasting time by getting another horse, Bryson held his hand down, and his grandfather mounted behind him. It took a great deal of energy to heal, and it was easier if Gavin didn't have to ride there himself. Instead, he could let Bryson do the work. When they met up with the other men, the spokesman for the other group said, "This is Gavin McClain? He's an old man." "He's the only man in the Highlands with the skills you need," Bryson said, not willing to listen to any complaints. If his grandfather was willing to heal the man's father, he felt like there should be a great deal of respect given. The other group turned around and rode the way they'd come, and Bryson ordered his men to follow. The entire group would go, in case there was an ambush waiting. Bryson wished he'd thought to bring his father, who could read others' emotions. That would have made the entire thing so much easier. It took a little over an hour to reach the injured man, and there was a man near Bryson's age with him. Bryson dismounted, and then waited as his grandfather did the same. "The McClains are happy to share their healer with anyone who asks." The young man stood up. "Thank you. I am the healer for Clan Chisholm. I do not have the ability or experience to heal our laird. I bow to your greater knowledge." Bryson was a little surprised at the formality of the man's words, but now it made sense. The man who had come to get his grandfather was the laird's son. Of course, he acted like he was a leader. The man, who finally introduced himself as Matthias, stood beside Bryson. "I hope your grandfather is the man he's reputed to be." Bryson smiled. "He is. I know he seems old and feeble-minded, but I promise you, he will heal your father, unless we are too late." "You have a great deal of confidence in him." Matthias watched as Gavin inspected the man's injuries. "I do. He has healed me every time I've been ill or injured. He is a wonderful healer, and I'm proud to call him my grandfather." Bryson didn't dare add that his grandfather had powers, as all the 7th sons in the family did, and he knew his grandfather would keep the truth hidden as he always did. "I'm going to give him a bit of tonic to help with the pain and heal him faster," Gavin said, pulling a small bottle out of his bag and removing the cork stopper. While Bryson and Matthias, as well as all of their men, looked on, Gavin tilted the bottle into the man's mouth, at the same time as he put his hand on the chest of the laird. "I'll put some salve on his hurt leg, and that should help as well." Gavin used a small pot of salve and rubbed it into the bleeding wound. As he did, he kept one hand just above the wound, and Bryson had no doubt he was healing the man with his powers. After 5 minutes of rubbing the salve, the laird awoke, and frowned at Gavin. "Who are ye? Where are me men?" "We're right here, father. When our healer couldn't help you, he suggested we bring you to Gavin of Clan McClain." Matthias walked closer to his father. "Why, the salve he used on you is nothing short of a miracle. It looks as if your wound is a month old instead of just 3 days." Gavin smiled. "I have learned healing secrets from me mother." Bryson hurried over to give his grandfather his hand so he could pull himself to his feet. He was a bit relieved, knowing that this first interaction with Clan Chisholm would decide how things would go between them in the future. He needed allies, not enemies. Laird Chisholm nodded at Gavin. "I thank you for healing me. My son has made the right decision to bring me here." "He has," Bryson said. "I'm the laird of Clan McClain. My grandfather was once laird, and he still serves the clan as our healer. I am the laird of Clan Chisholm." The man studied Bryson for a moment. "I hope there will be peace between our clans for many generations." Bryson nodded, clasping the man's hand as he slowly got to his feet. "I have hopes for the same." Gavin handed the salve to Matthias. "This salve should be applied every evening. He is ready for travel back to your home." Matthias shook his head. He was on his deathbed but moments ago. "I have many healing secrets that help." Gavin acted as if it was normal for a man to go from dying to able to walk around in mere minutes. "I am happy to have helped, but now I must return to me clan. Me old bones like to be in me own bed at night." Bryson shook hands with Matthias. "I look forward to seeing you again." He walked back to his horse, mounted, and helped his grandfather up. The other McClain men had remained on their horses, as they had been on many healing trips just like this one. They knew it wouldn't be long before they could return home. As they rode back, Bryson let himself think once again about his beautiful bride. Mayhap their picnic had been interrupted, but he could still make it up to her. Holli showed Maisie her phone as she explained that she was from the future and the device was something used to play games and communicate with one another. "This is why we ask that you be discreet." Maisie shook her head. "This canna be true." Beth laughed. "It's very true. I came from the same time. So did Heather. I'm not sure why we keep getting sent to the McClains, but I'm happy we do. We can do things together this way. But, the two of ye were the ladies of the clan, and now Holli is. It doesna make sense for ye to believe this. But we do believe this. We tell as few people as we can because we really don't want to change the past," Beth said. "My husband knew before I married him, and so did Heather's. We don't hide it from family." "Well, that's good news then." Maisie still looked confused. "I will do all I can to keep the secret." She frowned for a moment. "Does me mother know?" Heather shrugged. "I think she has suspicions that I'm not from around here, but she's never asked me about where I am from." "May I ask her if she knows?" Beth shook her head. "No. You can talk about it to any of our family, but not to anyone else." Maisie sighed. "'Tis a big secret you ask me to keep." "You did promise you could be discreet," Holli said. "Don't worry. We'll do our best to make it so you don't have to try to hide our secret, but if you could just not share with anyone, it would help out a lot." She decided then to wait to tell Maisie Bryson's secret. There was only so much the girl could take in at one time. "I'll do me best." Maisie picked up her mending again, now that the talk of the strange future devices was over. It wasn't long after that Bryson returned, bringing his grandfather with him. He walked straight to the parlor, obviously knowing it was where he could find his wife. The laird of a clan we hadn't yet met needed to be healed. Their clan's healer had heard stories of grandfather and his ability to heal, so the laird's son came here. "You're okay?" Holli asked. It was the first thing that sprang to her mind. Already she was starting to feel attached to this man. "I." He looked at his grandfather. "I don't know if you've had the pleasure of meeting my grandfather yet." This is Beth's husband, and the healer of our clan. Holli smiled at the old man who stood before her. I don't suppose you can heal migraines. Bad headaches? Gavin asked. Why, of course I can. Do you have one? Holli shook her head. No, but I have them quite often. Having whatever is wrong healed so they'd go away entirely would be really nice. Heather leaned forward. I haven't had one since coming here. I think mine were caused by the chemicals and all the pollution that are involved in everyday life in the 21st century. If you get one, then have him heal you. Does it hurt you to heal someone? Holli asked, surprised that Heather didn't think she should have him try. I take some of the pain on myself, and then it quickly leaves me. But more than that, it takes a great deal of energy to heal. I find myself weary after healing. I used to have a great deal more energy to work with, but I'm an old man now. Holli nodded, understanding. Then I won't ask you to heal me unless I really need it. He smiled and nodded. I just pray I'm still around when this Black Death me wife and daughter-in-law keep telling me is coming. Someone needs to be able to heal our clan. Holli frowned, realizing only then that she was going to live through the Black Plague. What had she been thinking? Chapter 8. Bryson's parents, grandparents, and brother Kendrick all ate the evening meal with them. The stew tasted good, but Holli decided not to ask what it was made of. She was a bit of a finicky eater, and if she realized there was something that she thought of as disgusting in it, she wouldn't be able to continue eating it. While they ate, they talked of having a family meal. Mayhap on the next Sabbath we can have the entire family here at the keep, Bryson suggested. I know I want Holli to meet all my brothers and sisters. And all of my nieces and nephews, of course. Are there a lot of nieces and nephews? Holli asked. Heather nodded. I have 14 grandchildren and 2 more on the way. The McClains are nothing if not prolific. And you'll have 7 more, of course. Holli nodded. The idea of having that many children is just a tad bit overwhelming, she said. It was for me too. I always figured I'd have 1 or 2, Heather said. I wasn't sure if I wanted any children, Beth added. I was raised in New York's foster system, and I wouldn't wish something like that on my worst enemy. I was sure I'd be a terrible parent, but you weren't. Derek said. You were the best mother a boy could ask for. Holli smiled. I just kind of wish I could have a girl. Heather shook her head. No point wishing for that. You'll have nieces and granddaughters, but no daughters of your own. Which is really sad, Holli said. If I have to have 7 children, you'd think I could choose the sex of at least one of them. Bryson frowned at Holli. I didn't mean to force you into a life of no daughters. He had to wonder if she would resent him for the fact that there would only be sons, and so many of them. It wasn't something women from the future seemed to like. I know you didn't. I don't blame you at all. I knew what I was getting into. Holli looked over at Heather, who was watching them carefully. I'm sure I'll love having granddaughters. Who wouldn't? It's more fun with your grandchildren anyway, Beth said. You get to spoil them and send them home to their parents. Holli frowned. But you two won't do that to my children, will you? Of course, we will. Heather said. It's a rite of passage. We spoil them and you get to unspoil them, and then we start the whole cycle over again. It's going to be so much fun. Holli glared at Heather. I used to call you my friend. And now you call me mother-in-law. The evil smile on Heather's face made Holli want to throw something. Bryson shook his head. They are teasing you. They will love the children, but they do not want to be grandmothers to spoiled bairns. Holli sighed. I never really thought much about having children, and now that I know I'll have 7 sons, well, everything feels a little different. Bryson squeezed her hand under the table. Don't worry about them. After the meal was over, Bryson offered to take Holli for a walk. Where should we go? I'll take you through the village. I want you to meet my brother, Callum, and his wife Bonnie. Bonnie is close to our age, and she is carrying her first. I think the 2 of you will be fast friends. That sounds nice. Though Holly had friends there already, she would love to have people to spend time with who were not her mother-in-law or grandmother-in-law. The couple was out walking, and Bryson held up a hand when he saw his brother. "Callum, I want you and Bonnie to meet my wife, Holly. She comes from the same year as Mother," Bryson said, lowering his voice for the last sentence. Bonnie looked at Holly for a moment, studying her. "I have heard stories ever since I married Callum of his mother coming back in time. I find it hard to believe." "It's true," Holly said softly. "She and I shared a house with one other woman before she came back here. When I came back, part of my wish was to see her as well as find the man I'm meant to be with." They chatted with the other couple for a few more minutes before deciding that Bonnie would come over the following day, and they would do some sewing together. Holly had never been one to enjoy sewing or any other craft really, but she'd give it a try. Someone had to make all those baby clothes, after all. As they walked back toward the keep, Bryson asked Holly about what she'd said. "You asked to be sent back to the man who was meant for you?" He hadn't yet heard her say that. Holly nodded. "I did. I know it sounds strange and everything, but I think she was right. I'm drawn to you in a way that I never have been to another man. I wonder if that means that you are the woman I'm meant to be with." Bryson looked very interested in the possibility. "I think so. I figured you'd felt something, and that's why you married me." He shook his head. "Alas, I had no real feelings for you when I told you that we'd have to be married. I was only fulfilling my promise to my father, not thinking about what it would be like to be married to you." Now his feelings for her were growing, but it was after the wedding, and not before. Holly frowned, looking down at her feet. Already she had feelings building for him, and he felt nothing. "Great job, Dr. Lachelle." She wasn't sure how she was supposed to handle her feelings when he didn't reciprocate, but she'd figure something out. She only wished it was as easy as talking to Heather had been back home, but Heather was his mother. She couldn't talk as freely as she would like with his mother. "Did you have a good evening?" he finally asked when he realized she'd stopped talking. She nodded. "I did. It was a good day. I mean, I was worried about you while you were off meeting the men, but for the most part, it was a really good day. I did tell Maisie my secret, and though she was stunned, she said she would never tell." "That's good. I'm glad she will be your secret keeper. And you don't need to worry about me when I go off. I can call for animals in the area to defend me if necessary, but I never go without my men at my side. I wouldn't take that risk." "That makes a lot of sense," she said. Now she simply had to figure out how to make the man fall in love with her. It shouldn't be too terribly hard, she hoped. If she was meant for him, then perhaps things would happen naturally and she shouldn't force them, but she was too impatient for that nonsense. She was a modern girl after all. The following day Holly made a plan. She was going to find the way into her husband's heart if it took everything she had inside of her. When Bonnie came over for lunch, Holly asked her the right way to make a man fall in love with you. Bonnie gaped at her for a moment. "You mean you don't feel loved by your husband?" Holly shook her head. "No, I don't. I feel like I'm falling in love with him, but he feels nothing for me." She sighed. "He married me because right before he found me, he'd told his father he would marry any woman who came back in time to marry him." Bonnie put her hand over her mouth and stifled a laugh. "That sounds just like something Bryson would say. The man, well, he's always been a bit different than his brothers. He's always felt like he could do anything he wanted because he was the future laird. His parents have been on him to marry for a good long while." Holly sighed. "I know. He didn't want to marry, but he had no choice once I was here. I believe he's the man who is meant to be with me for the rest of my life, and he thinks I'm a random friend of his mother's." "Oh, no he doesn't. That's not how he is. Now that he's married, he'll settle down, and he'll love you for the rest of his days. It's who he is. Bryson plays around a lot, but now you'll find he's dedicated to your marriage. I hope you're right. Anyway, I want to do something special with him. Something that will make him love me." Bonnie pursed her lips as she thought, one hand rubbing her large belly. "I'd suggest dancing, but you'd need music for that." "Oh. I have music on my phone. Phone? My strange object from the future? Bonnie laughed at that. I suppose that is a good way to describe it. I wouldn't know anything else about it anyway. I have games I play on it, and in the future, people will use it to look up any information they need, and they talk to one another on it. Seriously, it's an amazing little device. Here though, it plays music, I can play games, and I can read books on it. That's about all. Bonnie's eyes grew wide. You read? Holly nodded. In my time most people can read. There are a few who have trouble, but not many at all. Bonnie took a deep breath as if she was gathering courage. Do you think you could teach me to read? I've always wanted to learn, but it's not something women are taught. If you don't think it would bother Callum, I'd be happy to teach you. Bonnie clapped her hands together. We'll start right after lunch. Holly couldn't believe the excitement she could see in the other woman's eyes. Learning to read was something so basic to her, but to the other woman, it was a great privilege. She had to remember what a privileged life she'd led. As soon as lunch was over, Holly brought down one of the notebooks she'd decided to bring from the future. She knew she'd probably write in the notebooks, but it had never occurred to her she could teach someone to read with one. They sat at the table together, and Holly taught Bonnie the alphabet, showing her each letter as they went and demonstrating the sound it made. There are too many. Bonnie finally said in confusion. How am I supposed to remember one squiggle from another? Let's start more simply then. Holly showed the other woman how to spell and sound out the word cat. And then she replaced the C with AB, explaining the sound the B made again. By the end of the afternoon, when Bonnie had to go home and fix supper for her husband, she was reading simple words. I don't want to go now, but I must cook. Tomorrow you will help me again? Bonnie asked. As long as you're willing to keep giving me advice about making Bryson love me. I think we're a good pair then. I will help in every way I possibly can. Bonnie hugged her close. I'm so glad you're here. As Holly watched the other woman walk away, she thought about how good it would be to have a sister-in-law she could call friend. And whether or not anyone in the clan thought women should learn to read, Holly was determined to teach Bonnie. Her friend wanted it, and it was easily within her grasp. Chapter 9. When Bryson walked into the keep that evening, he looked tired and dirty. Holly met him at the door. Hard day? She asked. He nodded. That sudden downpour we had was in the middle of training today, and we all got filthy. Now I just want supper and a hot bath. Holly frowned, hoping that didn't mean her plans for the evening were ruined. Why don't you get your bath now, and then we'll have supper? Would you mind waiting to eat? Not at all. I had the cook make some baked potato soup, one of my favorite things. It will easily keep while you take your bath. Holly kissed his cheek. You go up, and I'll have your bath readied. Bryson smiled. And this is why I need a wife. I'm doing my best. Holly rushed toward the kitchen and asked that water be warmed for the laird's bath. Once that was arranged, she went into the parlor and sat down with her phone to play a game for the time she had. She had already picked the songs she wanted to play while they danced that evening. As she played, she hoped his bath would wake him up a bit. She didn't need to try to romance a sleepy man. When Bryson came down half an hour later, he looked much more chipper than he had when he'd headed up the stairs. Are you ready to eat? She asked. He nodded. I can't wait to try this favorite food of yours. You sit at the table, and I'll get Fiona to serve us. She hurried into the kitchen and politely asked for the food to be served. Fiona had made bacon and sliced cheese to put into the soup as well as butter. As soon as Fiona saw Holly, she nodded. I'll have it out in just a moment. Thank you. Holly was excited to see if Bryson liked this meal of hers. She hurried back out and sat at his right hand instead of going way down to the other end of the table to eat alone. I sure hope you like this meal because I'll want it quite often. I'm positive I will like it. He squeezed her hand. What did you do today? Bonnie came over, and we talked some, and she asked me to teach her to read and write. He raised an eyebrow. What did she say when you told her no? Holly was surprised he'd think she would turn the other girl down. I didn't. I taught her to read some simple words, with a promise to continue the lessons tomorrow. Why would I tell her no? I told you it wouldn't be a good idea for you to teach the women of the clan to read. He wasn't sure what had been unclear about that. Women didn't read, and he was certain they were happier for it. I thought you meant the women in general, not your brother's wives. Bonnie is so excited to learn. He sighed, sitting back as the food was placed on the table in front of them. After Fiona left, he said, I believe that the women of the clan are much happier not being able to read. They don't need to think they can do more or be more than they can. I understand that in your time, a woman can do any job a man can, but it's not like that here. Bonnie will only ever be a wife and a mother, and she will be expected to raise her children to follow all the standards of our clan. How can she do that if she's dreaming of being a writer or giving people massages? Holly closed her eyes, her fist clenched in anger on her lap. How will it hurt her to know how to read? She'd be able to read children's books to your nieces and nephews. She could teach her own children to read, and perhaps they'll find they are more suited for occupations that are outside of the clan. But this clan is their home. We don't want our people leaving. I don't know why you can't understand what a simple thing it is to leave their lives untouched by the future. Holly looked down at her soup, and finally picked up her spoon to take a bite. It was good. Not quite as good as hers was, but good enough to eat again and again. I'm sorry if you feel like I've done something wrong, but if you want me to stop teaching Bonnie how to read, then you need to tell her. He frowned at her. You made the error by agreeing to teach her. Now you must be the one to tell her you can't possibly keep doing it. I won't. Holly's eyes met his. I was offering her a kindness, and you are the only one it bothers. I'm surprised Heather and Beth don't have all the ladies of the clan reading by now. They haven't taught the others to read because they don't want them to be unhappy with their lives. There's no need to learn. What if I want to write out instructions on how to cook something? I had to spend time in the kitchen today showing Fiona each step of the process for making this soup. If she'd been able to read, I could have just written it all down for her. I have dozens of recipe books on my Kindle. Without being able to read, I would never be able to make anything new for you. I won't keep discussing this. I will tell both Callum and Bonnie that I don't think it's a good idea for her to read. That's all. The rest of their meal passed in silence, and Holly couldn't remember why she wanted Bryson to fall in love with her in the first place. The man was an egocentric male chauvinist, and she didn't ever want to look at him again. After supper, while the dishes were being done, Holly looked at her phone and thought about asking him to dance with her, but instead, she went upstairs and got ready for bed. The man was insufferable. Bryson frowned as Holly excused herself to go upstairs. He wasn't sure why someone as intelligent as his wife obviously was couldn't understand that reading would poison the women's mind against everything their culture held dear. No, Bonnie didn't need to learn to read, and neither did anyone else. The following morning was difficult as well, with silence between them instead of small talk. When he left for the morning, he kissed her cheek, and she childishly waited for him to be out of sight before she wiped his kiss from her cheek, as if he had cooties or something. She knew it was silly to act that way, but she truly didn't understand the harm in teaching women to read. It felt the same to her as many religions saying that reading romance was wrong, because it gave women unrealistic expectations. If women couldn't tell the difference between a hero in a romance novel and a real man who scratched his butt, then there was something wrong with them, not the book. Bonnie came over for lunch again, and she broached the subject of learning to read. I know that Bryson is against me learning to read, but Callum likes the idea of having a wife who can read and write. He said his brother is just being silly. I don't suppose you'd keep teaching me and not tell Bryson? Holly studied her sister-in-law for a moment. I won't hide what I do for my husband. But I will continue teaching you to read. I don't see what good it does to keep that knowledge from you. Bonnie's face lit up. Oh, thank you. As soon as they'd finished lunch, the two women sat down together in the parlor, and learned more of the letters and the sounds they made. Holly knew she shouldn't be disobeying Bryson that way, but it was more important to her that her new sister could read than her new husband be happy. When it was time for Bonnie to leave, she hugged Holly. Thank you so much for teaching me. You're very welcome. Holli knew she was leaving herself open for a fight with Bryson that evening, but at the moment, she didn't care. He was being ridiculous anyway. Heather came over shortly after Bonnie left. "I hear you're already making waves around here." Holli sighed. "I think if a woman wants to learn to read, she should be allowed to do so. It's silly that Bryson wants to keep half of his clan illiterate." Heather grinned. "I always felt the same way. Anyone who wanted to learn to read came to me and I taught them." She shrugged. "Of course, Derek wasn't as opposed to me teaching others to read as Bryson is. I really don't understand what Bryson's problem is." Holli rubbed the back of her neck. "Bonnie came to me today and asked if I would keep teaching her to read in secret. I told her I would teach her to read, but I wouldn't keep it a secret from my husband. No matter how angry he gets, I'm going to teach her to read, because she should be able to. I'm glad I won't be here to see those fireworks." Heather shook her head. "My youngest son is the most hard-headed man I've ever seen. It's not going to be easy for you to convince him it's okay." Callum didn't mind if Bonnie learned. Shouldn't it be up to her and her husband? Not her brother-in-law? Heather sighed. "If he makes too much of a fuss over it, you can send her to me. I would happily teach her to read, and I wouldn't have to hide what I was doing from my husband to keep him from getting upset with me. Don't you think it's weird that Derek is more forward-thinking than his son? That makes no sense to me at all. I guess Beth was better at training her sons to have modern thoughts than I was. Maybe because Gavin was so busy healing, she had more control over what her sons learned. I don't know. I just know that I'm willing to help if you need me to. I'm going to try to talk to Bryson again tonight. Or maybe I'll let it go tonight. I don't know. I want to do all the newlywed stuff and dance with him and have a real old-fashioned courtship, but I feel like this needs to be out of the way first." Heather shook her head. "Not at all. The courting needs to come first. I promise." "Why?" "Because once he's in love with you, he'll be a lot better about things like this. He's the man who is meant for you. Take advantage of that." Holli wasn't sure Heather was giving her the best advice, but she decided to go with what she'd said anyway. It wasn't like she had anything to lose. When Bryson came in, he seemed to be in a much better mood than he'd been in the night before. "We're having a nice shepherd's pie tonight," Holli told him. His eyes lit up. "That's one of my favorite foods. I love the mashed potato crust." "Oh, good. It's one of my favorite things as well." All through dinner, she kept the topic on simple things like the weather and how his day had gone. By the end of the meal, they were both in a good mood. "Would you like to dance?" Holli asked. "We have no music," he said, frowning. "I have some on my phone, if you don't mind some modern music, that is." She'd queued up some of her favorite songs, knowing she wanted to dance with him. "I think I would really enjoy that. Mother and grandmother have sung some of the modern songs for us, but they always said they weren't getting the songs exactly right. I want to hear them just as they were played." "Will be played?" she asked, grinning at him. Will be. Who knows how we're supposed to phrase things after time travel?" He stood up and took her hand, leading her into the parlor. Holli pushed play on her music track and went into his arms. "I like slow songs. I have some country on my list and some pop. I like to be able to dance to music without my arms flailing and my legs getting tangled." She took his hands and put one on her waist and held the other with hers. "Now we just slowly sway back and forth." At first, he was stiff and kept her at arm's length, but then they slowly moved closer and closer. By the third song, her head was on his shoulder, and his strong arms were tight around her. "I like your kind of dancing," he said. "Me too." After several more songs, they sat down on the couch, close to one another, and she made sure she squirmed closer to him. "Thank you for dancing with me tonight. We can do this anytime you'd like. This is one future courtship ritual that I find I like. Picnics and walks and long talks are also courtship rituals in the future." Bryson considered that for a moment. "I find that I'm quite adept at future courtship then." "What about kissing? Is that allowed in future courtship?" Definitely, she said, raising her lips for his kiss. A short while later, they went up to bed, and lay there in the dark. One question each, she asked. I like that game you play. You go first. If you had met me as just another Highlander, would you have looked at me twice? He frowned, thinking about it. I would have admired you for certain, but I'm not sure I would have approached you. Why not? She asked. Did he find her that unappealing? Because I had so many women thrown at me so often, I wouldn't have had time to court you. It was strange, but when I wasn't looking, there was always a woman, dangled before me like a carrot. Now that I have you, I think I wouldn't have married any other way than the way we did. I needed to meet the woman who was meant just for me. She smiled at that. I'm glad. Your turn. Have you ever been in love with another man? And if so, what happened? I thought for a long time that I was in love with Justin Timberlake, but Jessica Biel just cut me right out of the picture. Are you sad you didn't marry this Justin? She laughed. He's a famous singer, and his wife is a beautiful actress. I never even met him. I've never had any sort of serious relationship. This makes me very happy, my beautiful wife. Holli sighed contentedly. The courtship seemed to be working. Now she just needed to choose something to do next. Chapter 10. By the time Holli had been there 3 weeks, Bonnie was reading well. Holli still hadn't brought up the fact she was teaching Bonnie to Bryson, but she knew it would come out soon enough. It was the middle of the day, during their lesson, when some of the soldiers carried Bryson into the keep. Holli dropped what she was doing, jumped up, and ran to her husband. What happened? He was hit in the head during training today. It was no one's fault, Kendrick said, standing over his brother. Holli knelt beside him on the floor, her hand going to the knot on her husband's head. Has someone sent for your grandfather? She asked. Aye. Callum went to fetch him. Within minutes, Holli had warm water and was washing the wound. Finally, after what felt like hours, Gavin walked into the keep, his healing bag at his side. He always carried it, even within the clan, because most didn't know he could heal with his touch. Gavin dropped to his knees beside Bryson before looking around at who was in the keep. When he realized it was just family and servants, he put his hand on Bryson's forehead and closed his eyes. It was not even a minute before Bryson woke. He lay still for a moment before saying, "Thank you, grandfather. Your skills are appreciated." His grandfather smiled. "I'm happy to be able to use my power to help the laird." Holli had her hands over her face as the tears fell. It was funny. She hadn't cried at all when he was unconscious. It wasn't until he was healed that she felt the need to cry. "You're okay," she whispered. He sat up, completely better. "I'm all right. Grandfather's skill is the most useful of all the powers." She sniffled. "It is a wonderful power." Grandfather got to his feet with Kendrick's help. "You'll stay in for the rest of the day. I don't want you messing up all the healing I've done." "Yes, grandfather," Bryson said meekly. Kendrick then helped his twin to his feet. "I was worried for a moment there." "You were hit hard." Bryson nodded. "I'm just glad we have grandfather." Within minutes the keep had cleared out, and Bryson and Holli were left in the parlor. "I was so scared," Holli said once again, tears had come and gone all day at will. "I was afraid you'd die without ever knowing how much I love you." His eyes widened. "I thought you only married me because you were sent to the man who was right for you." She nodded. "That's why I married you. But I fell in love with you along the way." "Is that so?" he asked, smiling. "Of course, I did. And I've been doing everything I could to get you to fall in love with me as well. All the nights of dancing, and long walks around the loch." She shook her head. "And you still feel nothing for me?" "What makes you say that?" he asked. She sighed. "You've made it clear you had no feelings for me when you married me. You make me feel as if you never even felt a bit of attraction." Another tear fell, but this one was from heartbreak. "I don't know what else I can do to make you love me." "There's nothing you could do to make me love you more than I already do." Why do you think I've said nothing about you continuing to teach Bonnie to read, when you knew I didn't want it? Her eyes grew wide. You know? I've known all along. But Bonnie and Callum seem to think that her reading is a good thing, and I bow to her husband's opinion about it all. She swiped at the tear. Then you're not angry with me for that? I was at first, but no, I'm not any longer. I can see your desire to make an impact and be an asset to the clan. I cannot fault you for that. Your passion for helping others is something I cannot help but be drawn to. You are the love of my life. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner, but I really thought you knew. Holli stared at him. How could I just know that? I don't have strange powers that allow me to read minds, you know. I know. But I thought it was obvious in everything I do. When we walk, I offer you my arm. Every time I do that, I'm saying I love you. When I hold your chair for you, I'm telling you I love you. With each kiss, I'm saying it. But from now on, I know that you need to hear the words, and I will say it so often, you will grow tired of the words. That will not happen, she said with a smile. I do love you with everything inside me, Bryson McClain. Thank you for being the man who was created just for me. Bryson leaned down and kissed her softly. Since I cannot train today, perhaps there is another way for us to exercise this afternoon. I can think of something that needs to be done in the bedroom that would please me a great deal. Holli laughed, jumped to her feet and took his hand. I'll race you. He shook his head as she took a head start and ran up the stairs. The next 70 or so years with her would be the very best of his life. Always. Holli was in her chambers, her firstborn son in her arms. She gazed into his little face and stared at his eyes, which seemed to take in everything around her. Oh, Finn, I know you won't be the son to someday rule the clan, but you will always have a special place in your mama's heart. She kissed his chubby little cheek and sighed contentedly. You are the sunshine in my life. I cannot wait to teach you to read and let you go on all the adventures available to a boy who reads. You're going to need a children's library then, said a familiar voice behind her. Holli spun around and gasped. Dr. Lashiel. There'd better be a booby bump for me. I just traveled 700 years into the past, and I demand my rightful booby bump. Holli laughed and hugged her friend, little Finn caught between them. It's so good to see you. And it's good to see you as well. How do you like medieval Scotland? I love it. I found the man I love, and we've had the first of 7 sons. You didn't tell me you were sending me back to marry Heather's youngest son. Do you have any idea how weird that was at first? Oh, I have some idea. Dr. Lashiel's green eyes twinkled with laughter. I would dearly love to hold that boy of yours. Holli carefully passed her now sleeping son to the matchmaker. Am I allowed to request something? She asked. Dr. Lashiel sighed. Like a children's library? Okay, I want 2 things. Shoot. I'll make it happen if I can. Holli took a deep breath. I want a children's library sent straight to my room in a trunk or something. I don't need every children's book ever written, but the Harry Potter books would be great, and some Dr. Seuss. Oh, and Amelia Bedelia. And the monster at the end of this book. Dr. Lashiel grinned, nodding emphatically. I can make that happen. The other thing I want may be just a bit harder. And that is? I want you to send me chocolate every year. We have cocoa plants, but nothing beats a Hershey's chocolate bar. No nuts. Just plain. It was all I could think of while I was carrying this little guy, and there was no way I could put my hands on it. It made me absolutely crazy. Oh please. You traveled back in time to a place where there's no indoor plumbing. No woman would do that unless she was already crazy. But I'll send the chocolate. Thank you. Can you stay for a bit? I can stay for a few hours. Why? Beth and Heather made it clear that if I let you leave before they could talk to you, they'd never forgive me. Holli opened her door and called out to Maisie. Would you run and fetch Beth and Heather, please? There's someone here who would like to see them. Maisie took one look at Dr. Lashiel's hair and backed away. Her hair is purple. Isn't it beautiful? Holli asked, grinning. I will fetch them. With that, Maisie turned and ran from the room. Dr. Lachelle sighed. I'm so glad I didn't live in a time like this where people had boring hair. Holli laughed. You'll have to stay for supper. Tacos or Irish nachos? Oh, Irish nachos. I can get tacos anywhere, but it's sometimes hard to track down good Irish nachos. I'll make it happen. Holli felt like she'd come full circle with Dr. Lachelle's visit. She was happy now and everything was right. Epilogue. 10 years later. Holli sat in the parlor with her 7 sons, wondering what she'd done wrong. Her eldest 6 sons each had a power, but her youngest had not yet displayed one. Of course, he was only 3, but many of the McClain men showed their powers before then. Her oldest son, Finn, had the ability to move at an incredibly fast speed. He could move from the keep to the other side of the loch in seconds. He could even move fast enough to run across water. It was amazing, and completely unexpected. Son number 2, Lachlan, could transport himself anywhere he could see. If he spotted the woods in front of him, he could move to where he could see, but no further. Lachlan and Finn liked to race to the other side of the loch and did so a great deal more often than Holli was comfortable with. The third son, Knox, had the ability to communicate with anyone telepathically. If he needed his mother in the night, he would call out to her with his mind. It was frightening at first, but Holli had grown used to it. Their 4th son, Archie, had the power she'd been hoping her 7th son would have, healing. He spent as much time with his great-grandfather as possible, learning how to hide all that he was doing from anyone watching. And then came Maxwell, a boy who could make illusions appear for other people. If he wanted them to see an invading army, then that's what they would see. Blake, the 6th son, could use telekinesis to move anything, and he often moved his little brother about, scaring Holli half out of her wits. But her youngest, the boy tagged to take over the clan as soon as he married, had no powers. Not yet anyway. It frightened her to think that the 7th son's power was dying with the generation she'd given birth to. Mama, what's wrong? The words came through clearly in her mind, but she knew it wasn't Knox. It didn't sound like his thoughts. She looked around the room at all of her sons, wondering where it came from. And then she knew. Colin, I didn't know you had the same power as your brother. You can talk through minds? She heard a giggle in her mind as her youngest son teleported onto her lap, and then he ran as fast as his eldest brother across the room, lifting a book with his mind to sit down where it had been. The giggling was contagious. All the boys laughed, and Holli found herself joining in. Colin, do you have the powers of all of your brothers? She asked. Colin nodded. I do. Did the rest of you know? She asked all of the boys. They all nodded. It was a fun secret to keep from you, Mama, Blake said. It was Colin's idea. Well, it's a wonderful surprise. Holli shook her head. You boys should have told us, though. Colin walked over to Holli and put the tip of his finger against a scratch on her hand. As soon as he'd touched her, the scratch was gone. Her smile slowly spread across her face. The Black Plague was coming, and 2 of her sons were healers. 2 of them. Clan McClain should come out of the plague virtually unscratched. As would the clans they were allied with. It was incredible. Okay, let's read a story. Do you want Amelia Bedelia, Little House on the Prairie, or The Monster at the End of This Book? Colin said, climbing onto Holli's lap. It's the best book in the whole wide world. Holli laughed. It's one of my favorites as well. Colin floated the book over to her and it landed in her hands. Now we don't want to get lazy simply because we have powers. I won't, Mama. Colin's head rested on her shoulder. Now, read. And so she did, all the while knowing that everything would be all right. She couldn't wait to tell Bryson.